in a very projected way, such that some of these things the government would be able to address. But today looks like the opposition has been gelled into government, and therefore we technically do not have an opposition. If at all we do, then it's within the government, and so they call it the opposition within. That is in the Tanga side of Jubilee Party. And I mean, just how healthy is it to have such, and how much are they doing towards executing the role of an opposition? At a point in time, the likes of Third Way Alliance said, you know what, now we are officially opposition, and now that there is the handshake. But where are they today? Again, after the ouster of Ekurua Court, not much has been done towards, getting to see them actively involved in, overseeing what it is that the government is doing, acting as a watchdog on behalf of the people. The other day, the people decided that, you know what, we're going to do this our own way. Let's go out there, let's go online, because we have the freedom of expression. Let's start this talk of, calling upon IMF not to proceed, in our Kenya alone, or this particular loan that we speak about, 255 billion. But just how much can they do in terms of getting this addressed? Well, it's a question of wait and see, hence begging this question, just where is opposition? And in most cases, then one would want to understand, what is the role of opposition? If opposition is there, is it always that they will go, against what it is that the government is doing? We discuss all that right here. I know there's so much that we can look into in regards to that. So make sure that you also part and parcel of the conversation. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE. Later on, though, we also get into a different world altogether. I always call them my favorite segments, where we discuss different issues as opposed to the current affairs and, things that are of importance to you. And while this is a subject that we've touched on for quite a long time, we touch on it today. Mental health. What is happening? We know that the situation is dire. Adverse effects of COVID-19 in the country that have gotten very many people into states of, call it despondent, so to speak, because then they do not know what the future holds. They do not know how to go back. They are in a state of limbo. I mean, you've seen the numerous cases of murder across the family setup. What could be informing this? Gender-based violence, so much so on the rise. Our children are out there, they're getting pregnant at very tender ages. They are delving and getting deep into, abuse of drugs. And this is something that probably has been instigated with the effects of so much that is playing out right now. We call it the shadow pandemic. So much is happening in the world of mental health, and it needs to be addressed. So later on, we'll be looking at that. Make sure you also are part and parcel of the conversation. But before we get to that, we always look at the papers and the stories that have been prepared by my team. My name is Linda Alela, so let's get straight to the papers. And here we are with the People Daily and the Daily Nation. We'll also be having the Standard newspaper as we get to look at some of these key things. In the world of politics, BBI, why Raila key allies are now restless. Which way? While ODM boss has expressed confidence in the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, a section of the party leader piling pressure, or putting pressure, so much pressure on him to chart a new political path. And so this is one thing that we'll be looking at, while some within argue that there's actually no time. 2022 is just around the corner, and therefore it is important that, they set up their plans, they get to understand, while others, like the chairperson or John Badi, argue that we are jumping, that is what they say, we are jumping the gun. Our position is that we complete the BBI process first, then we talk about 2022. Yes, the party that is the official opposition party in the country, somehow, in a lot of confusion and limbo. And so we'll be discussing that as we get to proceed with the broadcast. As you can see, that is a story that has been captured on the front page of the People Daily. And so away from that, marital strife blamed in police couple death. Again, that is what it is that we'll be looking at this morning. Minister's bodyguard shoots wife in fit of rage before turning gun on himself in latest fatal incident involving security officers. And technically speaking of what is happening in the home setup, the strain that most of the people are going through, the stress of life that is out here, majority of the people have lost their jobs. So we'll be discussing that later on the broadcast. 15 die in early morning bus smash That is yesterday. Six of the dead in that accident of Mombasa Malindi Road were Kilifi County staff traveling to work. That's a story captured on page 12. Again, this clarion call that it's important we are careful on the road. Another one on the sides of Kisumu, which pretty much unfortunate. Speaking of, again, just how dire the situation is, and the strenuous moments that people are going through. So you're told or advised, if you're using the roads, make sure that you're careful enough. So still investigations ongoing as to what could have caused all this, but then again, quite an unfortunate occurrence. A reprieve for patients as HIV drugs are cleared. Remember, there's been that stalemate, there's been that fear that has been caused by the fact that these drugs were not cleared, but then officially it is out that they have been cleared, and now these patients are able to get their doses as expected. That is a story captured on page 2. We'll look at that as we proceed with the broadcast. MCA to serve 5 years for aiding a terrorist to escape. That is also one thing that has hugely been condemned. But then again, as they would rightfully put it, it's a good thing that the law has taken its course. And let's look at what has been captured on the Daily Nation, front page of the Daily Nation. Here we are on that big story, or that story that I said we'll be looking at later on. Police couples troubled ends in death, a story that has been captured on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Battle over Sputnik intensifies as LSK moves to court to counter or to challenge the Ministry of Health's move to stop the importation of the same vaccine into the country. A story captured on page 10. Just what could be informing this? Remember, a lot of narratives are being coined as to just how this vaccine got its way into the country. Arguments are that there are certain key individuals or very prominent individuals that could have instigated this or pushed for this against what would be, the role of the Ministry of Matters Health. So we can wait to see how this will be countered and what direction then it takes. Power women driving politics, playing integral roles, some publicly and others behind the scenes. A growing number of influential women are expected to shape the succession politics come 2022. Politicians like Governor Charity Ngilu and Waiguru, NARC Kenya party leader Martha Karua, who regularly participate in strategy meetings as political alliances begin to take shape ahead of next year's elections. Page, what will be the space of the woman? The BBI document or the bill itself, if at all it finds its way or it sails through, speaks hugely of how best we can also be able to attain the two-third gender rule that has been a problem, that has been, a pain in the neck of many, because then again, the legislatures have not been able to see this come to light as anticipated or as stipulated in the 2010 Constitution. And so we wait to see just how instrumental some of these women are. Pictures of the individuals, wives of the key leaders in the country, Mama Ngina Kenyatta equally. And we'll be looking at all this, just get to see what it is and just how they are capable to go out there and speak on behalf of the women as they shape the future of politics that is likely to also have lots of women coming on board. Celebrations coming from different countries. In the recent past, last month, we have seen 2 leaders elected, or 2 presidents across different countries as women leaders actually elected as presidents. And so we'll be looking at that as we proceed, even as we cross fingers that again the women will indeed get that space. IMF Treasury to unveil new taxes. The loan amount IMF Executive Board approved is 256 billion, and the government plans to introduce new taxes and cut back on existing tax exemptions as part of reforms package funded by the International Monetary Fund, that is IMF. To get about 257 billion loan from the IMF, the National Treasury has also promised to reduce the public wage bill in what signals tough times ahead for the government employees. That speaks of the conditions that have been set by IMF, if at all it is to proceed and award the country these particular loans that we speak about. So that's some of the key stories that we'll be looking at as we proceed. We also do not fail to speak of matters education, examinations ongoing. Equally, marking is almost like done for the KCPE, and results are expected as from around next week. So we can be following up on the same on your behalf to make sure that you are updated. Like I said, it's important that you are part and parcel of this conversation. Tell us what is happening around you, and we get to sample this as we proceed with the broadcast. What's happening on the roads? Normally, Thursdays are not as bad. So let's see whether this trend continues across the different parts of the city. I mean, just a quick glance, it is evident that there's no cause for alarm, not much of traffic just by looking at the map as it is. We zoom in a bit further. Let's look at some of the spots that you'd be worried about somewhere around Donholm. This is where you get the red, quite red heavy line, or heavy red line that is somewhere around Donholm. That's where you can get some tenets of traffic, but it is not as bad. This is somewhere around Jogoo Road where it gets to connect to the other side as you cross to go to Outer Ring. That's where you get these tenets of traffic, but then it is evidently moving, so there's no cause for alarm around there as you get to connect to the likes of Manyanja Road. Outer Ring is clear all the way to Thika Road and down to these other parts. You can tell there's no problem. Yes, this is Thika Road. And evidently, as you're always used to, sometimes Thika Road can be hectic, but it is not bad this morning. This is Garden City going all the way down, or going all the way as you get yourself into the city. Down to Kenya Utalii College, there's not much of traffic, and all the way, some tenets of it just around Pangani area, and then you find yourself into the city. No cause for alarm. Limuru Road is equally looking all good this morning. As you can evidently see, Parklands on this other side where it is that we are is not looking so bad, so no cause for alarm. Muranga Road is pretty much of an ease. All the roads around Ngara, pretty much of an ease, even as you get to connect to the Globe roundabout. So there's no cause for alarm on this particular side. Let's look at a different road altogether. Tok Tok, Kikambala, somewhere around Lavington, James Gishuru Road, Waiyaki Way, pretty much of an ease this morning. It's a flow across all the different parts. And Gong Road is here, equally not so bad this morning. Southern bypass as smooth as you definitely expect, as I have said, and down to Langata Road. Langata Road is also not looking bad this morning. As you can see, roadworks as it has been for the better part of the week. And coming to these sides of Mombasa Road, somewhere around Capital Center, you find some tenets of traffic, but then it's not as bad as you can see. This is around there. And well, going down, yes, somewhere around Imara Daima is where it's a bit too heavy as you get to connect from the likes of Airport Road. That is this around Embakasi down is quite heavy on Mombasa Road and finding your way into the city. So yes, again, you find that there's some tenets of roadworks ongoing down there that probably could be informing this, but then right after it eases up and slowly by slowly takes shape to be good. So yes, that's more like it on the roads. As we drop that one, let's briefly look at what we have for you. And controversy continued to surround the impact of adverse effects of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in the country as the Pharmacy and Poisons Board announced the death of one person in Uasin Gishu County following the administration of the vaccine. And as Zainab Mohammed now reports, even though this tends to bring a lot of fear, there's still that clarion call that is coming from the government that, go out there and seek to ensure that you get the vaccine. Let's take a look at that.
Confusion has emerged over the effects of AstraZeneca vaccine following reports by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board over the death of one person in Uasin Gishu County. According to the Deputy Director, Pharmacy and Poisons Board, Professor Peter Ikamati, a woman is reported to have suffered a miscarriage hours after receiving the vaccine.
We've sorry to report that there is one fatal case. What happened is a miscarriage. We are yet to get the final details, and this happened in Uasin Gishu. We are yet to get the final details, and we shall be able to communicate with you once we get all the details.
However, the statement was later retracted, with the board now saying that the particular incident is not directly linked to the vaccine and that more investigations are being carried out to establish the real cause of the death.
No, those are suspected. No case has been confirmed as having been as linked to the vaccine. We are waiting for the vaccine safety advisory committee to tell us, yes, this case is either some are confirmed to be by the vaccine or not. So no case has been confirmed as yet being linked to the vaccine.
What is rather surprising, though, is how the COVID-19 vaccine was administered to a pregnant woman when the government fully emphasized at the beginning of the exercise that children and expectant women are not eligible for a COVID-19 jab.
By you getting the vaccine today, it does not take away the chances that you will suffer any other health events that would otherwise be going on in the absence if the vaccine were not to be there. For example, if you get the vaccine today and you get bitten by a mosquito in the evening and suffer fever and malaria the following day, let's be alive to the fact that and look out for other health events that may also be associated. Let's not directly just link it.
Close to 340,000 people in the country have received the COVID-19 vaccine so far, with about 279 cases of adverse effects being reported among the vaccinated, 7 of which were adverse effects that later escalated to the recorded controversial death. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
Now, days after approving a new 255.9 billion shillings loan to Kenya, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has revealed the strict conditions it issued to the Kenyan government ahead of the phased disbursement of the multi-billion shillings loan. Now, the caveat on the loan approval by IMF will include a major overhaul of some 9 parastatals in the country that have been registering or persistent losses, as well as concerted transparency efforts in the utilization of the loan funds by various government entities. Our reporter David Muthoka breaks down the 255.9 billion shillings Kenya IMF loan. That is the deal that has been the subject of discussion among Kenyans in recent days.
Following days of social media uproar by a majority of Kenyans online who want the International Monetary Fund IMF to apply brakes on the disbursement of loans to Kenya owing to a balloon in public debt, IMF has however gone ahead to approve a 255.9 billion shillings loan to Kenya, but with stricter conditions. Unlike previous occasions where loan deals between Kenya and the IMF have been below the radar, the Washington-based multilateral lender has this time round let the cat out of the bag, perhaps as a result of the uproar online outlining the price that Kenya will have to pay for the loan. Already, IMF has channeled an initial 33.7 billion shillings to the Treasury as part of phased disbursement of the total loan amount. An additional 45.3 billion shillings is set to follow by July 2021, while the rest of the amount, which is 176.9 billion shillings, will be disbursed upon review every 6 months. To set this in motion, IMF has not only called on the government to put in place measures to tame rampant fleecing of the public purse, but has also gone the extra mile in identifying the specific leaks. As part of the loan deal, the Kenyan government will be required to initiate regular quarterly reporting on pending bills, covering ministries, departments and agencies, counties, semi-autonomous government agencies, and state corporations. In another push to enhance transparency, IMF will require the Kenyan government to publish the results of an audit of all COVID-19 related expenditures in financial year 2019 and 2020 by end of May 2021. Again, the Kenyan government will be expected to ensure that comprehensive information on public tenders awarded is publicly available on the Government Procurement Information Portal portal and that bidders are subject to dissuasive sanctions for non-compliance before end of June 2021. While going for the jugular, IMF has also targeted 9 loss-making parastatals, calling on the government to prepare an overhaul strategy for each to stem bleeding in public finances. They include Kenya Airways, Kenya Airports Authority, Kenya Railways Corporation, Kenya Power, Kenya Electricity Generating Company KenGen, Kenya Ports Authority, and 3 public universities. In its bid for the loan, which matures in 38 months, the government had sought the financial package to address COVID-19 response and the reduction of debt vulnerabilities. The new loan, however, comes against the backdrop of a debt crisis in the country that threatens to raise the current 9 trillion shilling debt ceiling even higher. Kenya's debt now stands at 7.25 trillion shillings, comprising of 3.48 trillion domestic debt and 3.77 external debt, after sharply rising from 1.79 trillion shillings in March 2013, barely days to President Uhuru Kenyatta's takeover. The head of state has, however, remained adamant that the public debt is within manageable levels.
I have almost 60% of the Republic of Kenya connected to power. My friend, for those kind of reasons, I will borrow, not to consume, to develop.
Development.
To develop.
But IMF has sounded an alarm, stating that although Kenya's debt remains sustainable, the country is at a high risk of debt distress. David Mudhoka, TV47.
All right, now the U.S. government has advised its nationals not to travel to Kenya due to COVID-19. The U.S. has also advised its citizens to exercise increased caution in Kenya due to crime, terrorism, health issues, and kidnapping. In a travel advisory dated April 7th, 2021, the United States Department of State for Bureau of Consular Affairs advises U.S. nationals not to travel to Kenya-Somalia border and some coastal areas due to terrorism and areas of Turkana County due to crime. The advisory also urges as U.S. nationals to reconsider travel to Nairobi neighborhoods of Eastleigh and Kibera at all times due to crime and kidnapping. The advisory further lists Tana River, Lamu, and Kilifi counties as no-go zones due to terrorism concerns. The advisory comes just a day after the United Kingdom issued a similar advisory citing a surge in COVID-19 infections. Now, the irony is both the UK and the US have way more COVID-19 infections and deaths compared to Kenya. And the recent spate of killings in the country has left many bewildered, especially those involving police officers and members of the discipline forces. Now, the recent case involving a GSU officer attached to VIP protection in the Office of Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Dr. Fred Matiang'i, has left tongues wagging after the officer killed his wife and turned fire on herself. Experts in the security sector warn of an increase in these cases of mental health issues if not addressed. Mwangi Maina reports.
In a press statement released earlier Wednesday morning by Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, Police Constable Hudson Wasike, attached to VIP protection at the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, shot and killed his wife before turning the gun on himself, ending both their lives. It is reported that the slain wife, Pauline Wakasa, a traffic police officer based in Kilimani, Nairobi, arrived home and was served supper by her house help when her husband shortly arrived, and the couple started exchanging bitter words where he was accused of infidelity. It is reported that at this point, Constable Hudson Wasike got out of the house briefly, and when he returned, he suddenly drew out his pistol, firing several rounds of ammunition gunshot at his wife's chest, killing her instantly. Before shooting himself on the chin, 9 spent cartridges were collected from the murder scene. The murder-suicide coming a day after another police constable killed a bar owner in Baringo over a 450 shillings unpaid liquor bill. In light of these events, Baron Adera, a security consultant and ex-Kenya Special Forces officer, says mental health issues, especially in the police service, account for the biggest percentage of these murders. Unfortunately, most of the mental health issues are never realized, and when they are, disaster has already struck.
The whole mountain of mental illness issues, mental health issues revolving around mental health, that potentially are underlying and have not been addressed effectively, and that then come to bear, and present themselves in some of these very rational, happenings that are witnessed amongst the populace, and sadly so within the disciplined forces that are to be treated with enough respect due to the fact that they have added training, so they've been transformed from what we call raw civilian into either military practitioner or a police operative, that are supposed to have a level of discipline that's refined beyond the ken of ordinariness or ordinary people.
Adera further says the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected the mental well-being of many Kenyans and has exacerbated many societal ills being reported, including murder and homicides.
Things like the protocols that come with the lockdowns or things like that, people are starting to spend a lot more time together. And as I told someone, rather comically, that people are meeting themselves for the very first time in their lives, because most of the time we spend time together with friends, and we are approaching life within that collectivist approach, and we sweep a lot of issues under the rug. But right now, in your own space, in your own house, you're facing your partner and spending a lot more time with them. So if there are things that you'd possibly laugh away and possibly be arrogant about and leave that space and go off for work or things like that, now you are facing those issues head-on.
In regard to the murder-suicide incident involving Matiang'i's bodyguard, Adera says it might be a tipping point, and lives of many VIPs, including prominent government officials, might be endangered if mental issues are not addressed holistically among members of the uniformed forces.
If this person got a text message, let's say, or a call from home that, we just saw your wife sneak into someone else's house, and so he suspected that there could be an affair that's going on, and they decided to shoot everybody around them and then shoot themselves, we would be staring in the face of serious catastrophe. Calls us to close scrutiny or to closely scrutinize issues of the selection that goes behind the identification of these kind of men that are charged with this business.
Adera says creating avenues where Kenyans can articulate their issues and open up about issues tormenting them will be a win in the fight against deteriorating mental health.
As murder cases in the country continue to spike on a daily basis, experts in the security sector opine that mental health issues have not been paid attention to, especially in the police service. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Thanks, Mwangi, for that. Now, the Council of Governors now wants the Ministry of Health to address the need of ARVs drug in the counties. The chair of the Council of Governors Health Committee, that is Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, said that there are counties which have zero number of ARVs. Also, the Council of Governors has said that the delay in disbursement of funds to counties has affected service delivery, and some sectors are almost grinding to a halt. Joash Ansari with that report.
It has been months of no HIV and AIDS drugs in some hospitals. The health of many HIV patients has been hanging on the balance, hoping against hope that the drugs will finally come. And now then the Council of Governors has waded into the matter. The COG is calling on the Ministry of Health to avail ARVs to the counties to alleviate the suffering of thousands of HIV patients.
There are counties with zero HIV commodities. This is very dangerous. This therefore means that the viral suppression of the people who are taking ARVs is compromised and increases their chances of dying due to HIV-related complications.
COG Chair of Health Committee and Kisumu Governor Nyang' Nyong'o also says services in the counties have stalled due to delays in disbursement of county funds. Some counties have not received their monies since December.
The Council of Governors now strongly notifies the National Treasury that this inordinate 4-month delay may lead to other drastic actions since negotiations seem not to be heeded. Council now demands for immediate disbursement of all the outstanding amounts owed to county governments before the 15th of April this year.
As the third wave of COVID-19 continues to affect the health sector, the Council of Governors has said the counties are overwhelmed with the ever-growing number of patients in the ICU.
There are a total of 417 beds in the ICU, out of which 259 beds are available for new patients. So the lockdown countries are a special category because in these lockdown countries, the number of people needing ICU beds has been going up exponentially. But I think the intervention taken should ensure the flattening of that curve in the highly infected counties.
So far, 5 counties have intervened in cushioning various businesses by lifting tax levies in keeping with the rising cost of living occasioned by the pandemic.
County governments have embarked on implementation of the strategy, which aims at supporting key sectors as well as creating innovative interventions that seek to address the varied implications of COVID-19 to the economy. So far, 5 counties, namely Nakuru, Embu, Lamu, Machakos, and Nyeri, have rolled out interventions which have multiplier effects on productivity and employment creation.
This being the second year since COVID-19 was reported in the country, the Council of Governors is calling on the national government through the Ministry of Health to release ARVs to the counties for the HIV and AIDS patients to get treatment. Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, 29 directors from tea factories in Nyeri County now say that Agriculture Cabinet Secretary, Peter Munya, was misled by activists allied to the Kenya Union of Small-Scale Tea Owners to initiate reforms in the sector through the back door. Their sentiments have been supported by their counterparts from Kiambu County.
At least 29 directors from tea factories in Nyeri County have accused Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture Peter Munya of being misled by activists allied to the Kenya Union of Small-Scale Tea Owners to initiate reforms in the sector through the back door. Addressing a press conference at Gotv Tea Factory, the director said that reforms being initiated by Munya, especially calling for elections, are the brainchild of the union officials who want to take over leadership of the factories.
If it is changing the law, there are systems. And these systems should be adopted by every farmer so that we can go together. Not just as the directors, but we move together as the farmers of a particular area, factory.
Agriculture CS Peter Munya ordered that elections on new directors be held on April 10th in all factories within the region under the new tea reforms. However, the directors moved to court in their effort to stop the polls, with the case still ongoing. The directors opined that if the scheduled elections go on as per ministry directive, the tea industry would collapse due to lack of full involvement of farmers.
So we are not opposed, but we insist that we should start from the actual tea grower.
In Kiambu, KTDA directors says that company laws on elections have not been followed, hence opposed to the planned elections in the region.
We want to clearly say that we as leaders of the small-scale tea sector in Kiambu County, we are not aware of those elections. Elections are held in a specific manner in accordance with the Companies Act, in accordance with our memos and articles.
We are not opposed to reforms, in principle, we agree to create development in tea industry. But this must be done in an organized manner involving consultation to establish facts and guidelines along which any reforms may be based.
The directors warn that the ongoing leadership wrangles in tea management will cripple the industry.
We have seen the direction that coffee went, the direction that sugarcane went, the direction that maize went, the direction that many other crops have gone. We do not want tea to go that direction, and as leaders, we want to be at the forefront of protecting this business. And
dismantling KTDA is not a solution.
We as the factory directors represented here are shareholders. Categorically state that we are legitimately in office and we will always defend the tea factories from attempts to take them down the road to destruction.
Now let's appreciate the few of us who are tuned and I mean equally sending in the feedback. Mr. Hope Isaac, who is watching from Thika, Kiganjo, Asante Sana. And we have Evans Momanyi watching from Mombasa, Kenya. Evans Momanyi says human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable, that every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions, and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. And so as we proceed with the broadcast, we say Asante Sana, make sure that you drop your comments now. We are almost getting into the conversation. Remember, we ask just where is the opposition, or is the opposition missing, and for how long has it been missing? In the event that its presence would have been felt, would it be a different scenario in the country as to how politics is being run, as to how matters development is being run, as to how matters, just trying to cushion the economy, making the economy stay afloat, or matters finances in the country, stay balanced? Would it have been a different affair if they were here? And so we get into this conversation, but not before we look at the papers briefly alongside the guests who are already on standby. We'll have Brian Omondi, Vice Chair, Third Way Alliance, who will be joining us virtually. But in studio, Anthony Ikonya, MCA, Kiambu Township, and Nick Biketi, who's a lawyer, and they are here in studio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Mheshimiwa, I know you were crossing fingers that I would say Member of Parliament, but today I was so much on alert not to say that. Good to have you after a long time.
Good to have you too.
Mm-hmm. Brian, you well?
Thank you.
Karibu sana. Nick, for the first time, welcome on board. I've had Brian before, I've had Mheshimiwa before.
Thank you.
And here we are, and we get into the conversation. But before we look at that, it's only fair that we also ponder on some of the key stories that have been captured on the papers, a majority of which I've also gone through as prepared by my editorial team. So let's briefly look at the papers. We have the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, and the People Daily. Who has the Standard newspaper? It's not here yet. That is the Standard, right?
This is Standard.
Okay, right there. Parties about turn on flag bearer. Still, is the same story that has been captured on the front page of the People Daily, PBI, why Raila's key allies are now restless, while ODM boss has expressed confidence in handshake deal with President Uhuru Kenyatta. A section of the party leaders are piling pressure on him to chart a new political path. To you.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Recently we saw Raila come out with the president.
Yeah.
And just from his voice, you will tell that the man is still ill.
Not well, yes.
But I think there was pressure from his team, and I think also the president's team, to just demonstrate to the country that they're still good friends, they're still working together. I think that was the main message, not really opening roads, because you could have picked Kalonzo to open the roads.
To open the roads. Mudavadi, or even the DP.
Or even the DP, So I think that's the main.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, but as the party is actually at crossroads, they don't know if Raila can push through as their presidential candidate. They're not sure about that. They're also not sure about the handshake position. there's been a lot of talk on the streets about the status of that handshake and the status of their friendship. Some people are saying the president is playing Raila in favor of his other friends.
Yes.
So we don't know. We are yet to see. 2022 is a very interesting. It will be a very interesting election.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Don't we really know? I mean, looking at how things were, say in Jubilee Party, which is your party, and we kept saying that something is amiss within the Jubilee Party, and the individuals kept saying, Jubilee is in order, everything is okay, until we got to this point where then it was evident that Jubilee is not in good shape. I mean, the purge that played out, the individuals that were crushed and washed at that particular time, still there's so much tension within Jubilee Party. Can we even confidently sit and say that the handshake is holding? And even if it's holding, does it even require that move by the president and Right Honorable Raila Odinga to just master and stamp that, all is well?
I think you've always known my stand in as far as the handshake is concerned.
Yeah.
And I think as we edge close to any election, you see there are political alignment, and you start now thinking towards forming a government. Yeah. And you look at the options that we have, and I think the pressures that Raila is getting from some of his allies within the ODM party, they're looking at, can we still trust Uhuru to deliver a Raila presidency?
Okay.
And, and when you look at
but they were very categorical, Mahesh, that is not their plan. Theirs was to unite the country.
That is what we were told.
But
in politics, there's so many things that happen, and I keep telling you that.
Okay.
And I always tell you that when fish comes out of water and tells you the crocodile is sick, you've no reason to doubt. You don't live in water yourself. So I tell you these things. And I happen to get into so many meetings, and I hear about, I've got so many political friends, and they'll tell you a number of things. So what ODM is looking at is charting a way that would take them to the presidency. And I think the handshake, they were getting to the handshake for individual, benefits, and we've seen most of them benefits, financially and otherwise. So I think that it's time, and there is not much to reap from government now. The government is broke. You ask me, I'll tell you that. So I think they're now looking at now going into 2022. So they're looking at options on what advantage would the handshake be to them as they get close to 2022.
All right. If the government is broke, then we ask, they justify to proceed and acquire some of these loans that have raised a lot of controversy? I am not asking that question. I'll ask right after we allow Brian to equally weigh in his sentiments on this. The likes of Wycliffe Oparanya are telling Baba, are saying the year 2022 is just around the corner and not far as some of these youthful leaders in our party would like to imagine. And I would want to even believe that this was not a message for the youthful leaders, technically also to Baba, because when Baba does not declare his stand, then it is more of a limbo for the likes of Oparanya, who've already declared that they would wish to go for presidency. The like of Joho, who would have already declared also that they would love to proceed for presidency. But as John Buddy would say, we are jumping the gun. Our position is that we complete the BBI process first, then we talk about 2022. Just how genuine are some of these statements that we see today, Brian Omondi? And just what card do you suppose Baba would unleash? I mean, right after the BBI, if at all there's going to be a referendum?
Well, I think the anxiety that is flying around, in my view, is neither here nor there, because we are talking about 2022 elections, and as you are all aware, we are just in April of 2021, and that means that we have about 16 or thereabout months to the next election. So what John Bird is saying there is that there is no really big tension. I mean, if you look at the past elections, 2007, 2013, and even 2017, formidable candidates in presidential elections are usually unveiled 3 to 4 months to the election. Yeah. So, if you see these factions moving everywhere trying to endorse people and trying to, claim to be endorsed, I mean, it is neither here nor there. So Raila is doing what he has always been doing over time. Yeah. And by the way, let me tell you, the confusion you are seeing around the handshake, and the anxiety that is building around the handshake, that is where Raila thrives. Raila is not somebody whom you can predict in terms of how he takes his moves. He thrives during conflicts and chaos. Yeah, so I think for me, what is happening within the handshake and the anxiety in ODM and in the entire country, that is where Raila, thrives, and that is where he performs best. So he's going to pull a move that is going to surprise the nation. But for me, I don't think there is any tension.
Okay, we wait and see what plays out. And speaking of which, we will look at the aspect of opposition. Yes, the handshake came on board, but faced off the opposition, or so to speak. I just don't understand how we direly need the opposition right now, or most Kenyans would tell you that they would wish to have the opposition because they feel like if there was an active opposition as expected or as what we are used to, then maybe this conversation of IMF would have taken a different direction today, maybe a direction that would be of interest of the common mwananchi. And so as Mheshimiwa would rightfully put it, that, here we are broke, but we are incurring more and more debts. I mean, we have to stay afloat after all. So is us going or running into debt something that is justified?
I mean, I've been listening to this debate, and it's quite. The position is that the country, as Mheshimiwa has put it, that the country has been choked by previous dates, and most interesting, Linda, is the fact that we are not borrowing for any sort of development. Okay. We are borrowing to retire loans that are already mature, and we don't have enough revenue, or we are not collecting enough to pay off. That one tells you that whatever government borrowed initially, the debts that we are servicing at the moment, were not for any enterprise or production sort of investments. Yeah. And that's why we are not having enough to pay off. So now when you look at the papers today, they are saying that we are borrowing 508 billion. And there is a law, or rather Parliament is supposed to be giving a cap.
A cap, yes.
All right? And now the cap has become a moving target. That whenever Parliament wants to borrow, the target is shifted upwards. And now that brings me to your question, that if the opposition was actually alive, if it was solid, then there will be questioning, should we be raising the bar? Or what have you done with whatever we've given you? But the opposition is, we see the leader of the opposition himself is in bed with the government. Now he leaves his colleagues, who is Musalia, Kalonzo, and Wetangula, who are supposed to have filled in the gap. And because of their numbers, they will not have capacity to fight and engage the Jubilee government. If they were still knit together as NASA, then they would have a formidable voice to actually engage the government. But Raila shifting to the handshake actually left the opposition with a capacity problem. Now, though we know that parties like the ANC have put a bill, yes, they've put a bill in Parliament to actually check borrowing. So, though it's moving so slowly,
it is. So I was here with our Honourable Member of Parliament for Embakasi North and a couple of members of Parliament, and I've been questioning this for the longest of time. The Public Management Bill, fronted by Bunyasi Sakwa, ANC party leader. And they confidently tell you, you know what, really that bill is there. It is quite a good bill. By you, Linda, this is not likely to sail. Because, I mean, what is happening?
And if you look at it, it's just a question of somebody will want to slow it down. Why? Because once it becomes law, then it allows not only the legislators, but also the public. The public can actually weigh in more strongly. You've seen that people have tried the social media approach. IMF has no interaction with citizens. There is no legitimate engagement position with IMF. So it will just be kupiga kelele, but mtazuia ng'ombe kunywa maji. Ni chura tu. So, but once the bill is in position, then we could see civil service and other people could actually even go to court on situations like the one we are facing. And worse off, let me just finish by saying, you see, when you look at the standard, they're actually saying that they're going to retire people.
Very many people.
Very
Yes,
many
I mean, those are the conditions, and mostly IMF and these other lenders will come with
Of
conditions
course,
laid.
Of course. And we are going into a Eurobond commercial loan again with 8%. Why didn't we just negotiate with the IMF to help us retire these loans? Then maybe it will become easier. I sympathize with the next government.
I do too. Because Linda, you know, the IMF issue has played again in Parliament. I remember then, Farah Marim, I do not quite exactly remember whether we used to have those days when we used to have a shadow finance minister when the opposition was very strong. I remember there was an issue again of borrowing that came during the government of that day, and the opposition came out very strongly, and they actually offered solutions and the way to go. And government gave in; they had no option because the opposition then was working. Today, as my good friend here says, the opposition is in bed with government. And nobody is talking because all of them have food in the mouth. All right? But look at the situation on the ground. I move every single day, and I'll tell you, things are pathetic. You've had Professor Nyang here say, we have hospitals without ARVs. We have a dire... the last time Exchequer came through, some counties haven't gotten their December Exchequer. So what does that tell you? I have not been paid. Nobody has been paid in the county. We went for Christmas without... It's not the county government problem. It's because money is not forthcoming. The question that we now need to ask ourselves, are we borrowing money to come and caution our people? No. All right? Our people continue to languish in poverty every day. Everybody is crying so that county governments would caution them. What counties are correcting today? Because again, we need to address the issue of our own source revenue and what is it that we're doing to make sure that we also get money from our own sources. And the people we're supposed to tax are those people who are languishing, whereas we're supposed to be cushioning them. So we in a very funny situation that we need to have very sober people look at it. That is why you need an opposition that will sit down and come with a formula against a government formula, so that you look at the two formulas and like what ANC is doing, but nobody's listening to them, you see. So I think we need to really address that, and we have no opposition. For to put it just clearly, we have no opposition. So we need to really ask government and the president, ask him, this money that we're borrowing, surely and honestly, what will happen in the next government?
Right.
Because you see now, you are coming to your end, and you leaving this problem to some other people. So we need to think around, because every time I hear government saying, actually we need to borrow money to do capital projects, I ask myself, fine, let us do rails and roads and what have you. But the question is, who is suffering? Are we doing, I look at the economy as the way Ruto puts it, that we look at it bottoms up. Can we empower the people down here and have them work every day? They're able to put money in their pocket. We're able to get exchequers in time, so county government workers have money, they can shop, and money will just go around, So that way we are now able to tax our people, and our source revenue improves, so that we do not have to rely with borrowing. And I think that is what Magufuli was doing. And that part was doing well for him. So I think we need to look at all those issues.
Okay. Yes. And while many people have read mischief, in the initiative that has been making rounds across the social media, at least it was able to gather quite a momentum, and about 200,000 people signed this online petition to stop IMF, from awarding us more loans or more money, in terms of debt. But then the question would be, well, we say that really nothing much might come out of that. Do you suppose then that it is a political stamp from Kenyans, to speak of just how tired they are? Because while there could be individuals who have instigated this or have initiated this, I mean, most of Kenyans equally felt moved by that. And you could see them go online, to just push and say, what, let's go and speak about just how much we do not need these debts, or we do not need more loans coming into the country. Kenyans getting into that level where they're going to say enough is enough? Ryan?
Well, maybe starting with whether there is an opposition missing in Parliament. I think I want to agree with my fellow panelists that indeed we have a missing opposition in Parliament.
But hold it right there. I think I wanted to ask you this question later on, but then I'll ask it right now. You remember that time the handshake happened and Third Way Alliance was so active, and Third Way Alliance said, you know what, we are going to take up the challenge. I don't know how much of representative ABS, and I mean, right now, Third Way Alliance is part and parcel of the BBI proponents. They are for the document. I mean, what happened to the opposition that was formidable coming from the force of Third Way Alliance, or it went with the Kuru court?
Now wait, you cut me short. I was driving a point.
I am sorry. I drive the point and then come back and answer that one.
Now, what I was saying is this. Yeah. We have a missing opposition in parliament, but we have a very active opposition outside parliament. And this active opposition outside parliament is none other than Third Way Alliance Kenya. Let me tell you, in this country, we have about 73 registered political parties. And apart from the 5 active political parties in parliament, you only hear about Third Way Alliance talking about pushing the government to strategically and ambitiously think about the public good. And we have done this in a number of ways. I wouldn't want to go into details now. But what you are saying is this. You know, first of all, I'm very disappointed that you are saying that the opposition is missing because Raila is not playing an active role. That is not true. Under the current constitution, the oversight role of parliament has been given to parliament, and this oversight role is supposed to be done by the members of parliament and the Senate. So if the senators and the members of parliament are not able to oversight the government, then they are the ones who have failed, and they are the ones who have failed and to put checks on government, not Raila. Yeah.
But then you agree that there is a role of legislators and there is equally the role of the opposition. And I mean, when we speak opposition, we also speak of legislators that have been, elected courtesy of the opposition party or the main opposition party, and therefore maybe Kenyans are justified to speak about this. Most of the times this is driven by the key opposition leader, which is actually the reason why many would say then there is that absence of opposition. But then before we delve deep into that, or I allow you to expound some more on it, allow us to take a quick break and then we come back.
Okay, thank you.
Gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
as we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my youth.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with the desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
aitoi ile garlic inafaa itoi, that standard garlic,
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday.
And the hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela, TV47K, TV47 on Facebook. Keep dropping the comments. Thank you for you who have already participated. We get to sample them as we proceed with the broadcast. Still with me in studio, Nick Biketi, who's a lawyer, Brian Omondi, Vice Chair, Third Way Alliance, who is on Skype, and Anthony Konya, MCA, Kiambu Township. We expound some more on the conversation, but we have not, finished looking at the papers. Brian, I cut you short, so I'll allow you to, finish your point.
Now, the point I was raising is simple. Under the current constitution, the role of oversight is given to Parliament. And when I talk about Parliament, I'm talking about the National Assembly and the Senate. So in the event that Kenyans cannot be able to, Kenyans are feeling that there is a missing opposition, or in the event that the government is not properly checked, I think Kenyans are supposed to blame the people they elected into office as MPs and senators, and not really the opposition leader. The opposition leader is just the troop leader. But the people who are supposed to champion the interest of Kenyans in these houses are the elected MPs and senators. And I agree with my fellow panelists that they have failed. But outside Parliament, Third Way Alliance Kenya, led by us, have tried to ensure that we push the government to ambitiously and strategically think about the public good. And you have done that in quite a number of ways. And I think, Linda, you can see that ever since we suspended our party leader, we have done a lot in terms of trying to reach out to the people and trying to even push the government to consider initiatives that are very good and those that can be able to uplift the lives of common people. And we are continuing to do that, and we know that it is difficult. It is difficult to push when you're outside Parliament, but we are doing whatever it takes to ensure that we push the agenda of the people for the benefit of the people. Talking about the high debt levels that you also talked about earlier, I want to disagree slightly with my fellow panelists. There is no problem. The issue is not borrowing, and for me, I have no problem with borrowing, by the way. Even the noise that Kenyans were making over the social media. I think yesterday you saw IMF's response, and they said that in fact, Kenyans qualify up to 500 billion. Kenyans can qualify, Kenya as a country qualifies for up to 500 billion debt, yeah? And you see we have not reached there. So what I'm saying is this, there's no problem with borrowing. The only problem I have is that the government has not prioritized their projects. The government has focused on expansive infrastructural projects, and yet they have not considered the projects that are very keen to uplifting the lives of the people. For example, I'm talking about if the government could consider, borrowing and investing in projects like, education, human capital, or even research and development. The impact of huge investments in such areas will trickle down to the common mwananchi, and they'll not be able to feel the weight of this debt. Let me tell you, there are many countries in the world that have very high debt levels, but they are very stable. The economy has grown in a very stable fashion. If you look at, for example, Canada, if you look at New Zealand, if you look at Australia, these countries have very high debt levels. But if you look at the growth of the economy has grown in a very stable fashion over the years. But again, there are countries that have very high debt levels, but the economy has been growing in a very slow manner. A very good example is Italy. Italy, for the last 15 years, if you look at the growth of the economy for the last 15 years, you realize that Italy has had a very slow economic growth. And this is because they have not been able to invest, or rather put their focus on projects like, for example, mega infrastructural development, fueling human capital formation and also education. And because of that, they have had a very slow economic growth. So for me, the issue is not over borrowing. The issue is lack of prioritization of government investment priorities. That is what we are missing as a country.
Well, there's so much that we can. Yes.
Let me weigh in quickly. Every time you borrow, even as a person, you always have a plan of paying back, right? Yeah. I want to borrow this amount of money, I want to put it here, I want to invest it, and this is how I'll pay back this money. The question is, every time government is borrowing, we have never had them tell us that this is how we are going to pay. Because really that is very important. That is why we keep plunging into debts every single day, because we do not have a strategy laid out on how we're going to pay out these debts. I want to tell my friend that Kenyans were not making noise. Kenyans were just hearing the concerns because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to pay. They are the taxpayers. So the reason why they're very cautious, why and even question the government why they're doing that, because there is nothing called government that is going to pay. It is taxpayers' money. And who are the taxpayers? These Kenyans who are complaining. So they're not making noise. They're only concerned because you have not even involved them in the borrowing, but you will involve them in paying. So they need to ask questions. Yes.
All right. And I want to believe that the questions are justified in a huge way, that in as much as we say that the problem is not in the borrowing, because then we have the capability, reality is that we also do not want to go the Italy way, like he says, that after borrowing all that, there's barely nothing to show for it. Yes. And so it's a conversation that is ongoing. We keep hoping that the government will find best ways of dealing with the same. But Mheshimiwa, you also speak, and I'm glad that you're the only one. You're the one who keeps triggering some of the key things that we that are already captured on the papers. You spoke about the ARVs, a sigh of relief, because then at least we have them into the country. Contrary to what was there earlier on, and therefore there's no cause for alarm. That should have been captured on the People Daily or the. Yes, here we are. Reprieve for patients as HIV drugs are cleared. So I think that one is something that we celebrate. And as the Council of Governors, was highlighting, it is important that the distribution is done as expected. So we drop that one. We come to these cases of marital issues, mental health problems. We'll be discussing that in the course of the program. We'll be having specialists joining us. That is later on in regards to discussing matters, mental health, drug abuse, the tough times that people are going through this pandemic, shadow pandemic, so to speak. But I'd love to hear from you. Marital strife blamed in police couple's death. Minister's bodyguard shoots wife in fit of rage before turning gun on himself. Latest fatal incident involving security officers. Barely a week from another incident. And probably barely 2 months or 3 months from many other incidents. And the numerous untold stories.
Yes. I think for me, Linda, this is a conversation that when you're at any social place, most people are talking about that our moral, ethnic, not ethnic, our moral
ethics and
fabric has totally collapsed. If you look at the younger generation, some of us, I don't know, Mwesh could be in that generation. When we were growing up, the first thing is Nikwenda Dini. There was something called Dini. At least for me, it was Catholic. Then for the Muslims, they had to go for madras, at that young formation stage on the moral issues. And the whole society was involved in raising anybody. Now we are in a situation, there was support. There was societal support. You run to your pastor and he'll give you guidance on how to go about a particular issue. You run to your parent and they'll give you guidance on how to go about a particular issue. We are at a situation where the custodians of morality, the custodians of that emotional comfort are totally lost it themselves. And that is the church. We had a conversation, social media was on it, especially when BBI was starting, and everybody was asking, where is the church? Where is the church in this country? When the politics are going wrong, you remember the days of Moi. when Kina Reverend Njonjo, the late Cardinal Otunga, the church will wane. Now, it's the same situation even when it comes to homes. You go to work, your boss is abusing you, all right? You're a man, especially these policemen.
Yeah.
You know, they're given orders, left, right, and center. Then, when you look at your pay slip, there's nothing impressive about it.
Okay.
The little you're getting when you go to the shop, it can't afford you anything that can run your family. When you go back home, all right, your woman or your wife, so to speak, is actually telling you that, a man is only a man on the strength of his pocket.
Yeah.
All right? And there is
Which is
nobody-
true.
Which is true. That's the fact. All right?
Sad fact, yes.
It's a sad fact, you know?
Yeah.
So the truth is that this man will definitely be extremely stretched and depressed. When you look at your colleagues and you're trying to also be straight, maybe.
Right.
You're also trying to be straight. And your colleagues in the forces, we all know the policemen it's the most corrupt entity of government.
Yeah.
Your colleagues are stealing and making a living that is looking better than yours. Your wife, if you see her on social media every other time, you become insecure, you're a gun holder. What happens?
You're better off dead, so they would say.
That's the point. Kenyans are not just policemen. All of us, if we are to open our Mheshimiwa, they will tell you, they're extremely stretched. Extremely stretched, considering the economic situation of Kenyans. Like Musalia says, tumefuliza paka tumejifuliza.
But it's true.
You know? So, Kenyans at the moment, everyone is, just like the country is stretched economically, everyone is stretched, and I think it is now trickling down to everybody, and there is no social support at all.
You know, I was talking to one member of county assembly and a couple of leaders, that were telling me sometimes they have to leave their houses very early. And I kept asking Mheshimiwa, every time I invite him, he is here even 1 hour earlier. So I'm like, you can't be this disciplined. Sometimes you're forced to run. That is what they say. They're running away from the people because they'll come have breakfast at your place.
Yes.
They're expecting you to solve their problems.
Yes.
Yet you're not able, Brian. This is crazy. And before we loop in Mheshimiwa, maybe let's allow Brian to come in and then we come to you.
Okay,
Yeah?
fine.
Yes, Brian.
I'm just amused by the fact that Mheshimiwa sometimes arrives here 1 hour early.
I am telling you. I used to wonder, how disciplined can someone be?
He's running away from his people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I agree with what Kibeta said, that really the social economic pressure is so high. And this pressure is being exerted from all quarters, from our families. Linda, you have just admitted that a man can only have a voice if they have money. So if that is, and that is a narrative that is flying everywhere.
Right.
So men are in pressure right from their homes, outside, everywhere. So this pressure is building up, and if we don't have places where we can be able to vent and people can listen to us and encourage us, just like the lawyer has said, the church, the counselors. Yeah, and again, men have this problem of not admitting that this thing is carrying them away. So they don't talk about it, and this really weighs down on them. And that's why you see now the rising suicide cases and all that. So I think for me, what I would say is that really the government really needs to ensure, because again, part of this problem has been necessitated by the government's actions, not ensuring that people, there is money going down to the people and their activities and functions going down to the people. So the Kenyans have been put in a very difficult situation because of the current affairs in the government and everywhere. But I think for me, moving forward, what I would say is that let us try to talk about some of these issues. Let us try to go to the church. The difference between how the church is operating now and earlier is that they have changed strategy. They are not more on the streets and all that. They have tried to become a bit civilized and modernized. Well, this is not creating a huge impact, as the lawyer said, But I think we need to still engage, continue talking to them and talk about our issues, and through that probably we'll be able to get help.
Maybe before Mheshimiwa jumps,
Yes.
there's something that just, when we're growing up, football was a big issue.
Right.
You go to the stadium and watch. I grew up in Kitale. There's a team coming from wherever it's coming from. There used to be, even for us who grew up from humble backgrounds, there used to be that lorry that will move around and show movies every end month.
Yeah. Right.
There used to be
the factual something.
Yes, there used to be some movies, something. There used to be so much activity. The music drama festival. When it's around your area, it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and parents are involved. Everyone is involved. The parties. Even humble families, will have parties and you'll have something to do. You look at your parents, they are dancing, they're doing what? What I'm trying to say is that the event halls in society now are extremely limited. To the extent that the only thing you'll find people talk about the whole day is politics.
Right.
Nobody's talking about soccer locally. Nobody's talking about the activities around the area. The only thing people are talking about is politics. So I think the event options for Kenyans have also been extremely limited, and I agree with Brian that the government needs to look at society wholesomely and give us these options. Now with COVID, we are locked in. No one is going to, those ones who drink, there is nowhere to go and dance. There is no sporting activities. So I think the options are becoming extremely limited.
Right. Mheshimiwa, he says that I miss my
I
old
must
days.
agree, I'm characteristically a punctual person. So,
I hope it is punctuality at this rate.
But there are a lot of pressures, of course, with the beat. There are a lot of pressures, and as I told you, I haven't been paid. So, and now when you come to my house,
and it will be hard for you to explain to you.
Yes, but let me address these issues, and I want to look at it in a big way. One, let me address the police, for example, because we need to do something within the police force, and I want to believe that the government needs to do more in terms of getting people who police can vent to. Because one characteristic thing with policemen is that they do not hear a good story from morning to evening. All right? In a police station, you do not go to report a good thing.
Yeah.
So what they hear every now and then are bad stories.
Right.
All right? Theft, murder, rape, those things. As my colleague here says, and you have economic strives, you have no money, you look at your payslip, you can't make it. You go to the house and you get, like, for example, this police officer was married to another police officer who've been going through the same thing the entire day. So they meet two people who've gone through hell. So how do they process?
But this one is, under a prominent person's side, and then one would want to assume that maybe things are a little bit better on that other side.
You've seen Matiang'i on TV, and you've seen
it's never good anyway. It's always quarreling.
So you'd imagine
the kind of pressure that policeman deals
so
with.
don't imagine that
he has to.
This is an officer who sits down with Matiang'i and enjoys lunch and laugh off things and what have you. So I'm talking to the entire now police force. So I'm saying we need to have government do more. We need to have a place where the police officers can go and vent and have social event, as you're saying, that becomes a vent, an exit point, so that they're able to. And I'm now happy that government did something. We have let them go out to the people and rent houses out there, so they can enjoy mingling with people and talk to kawaida people like me and any other person. So I think that's a good thing. But when we talk of marital strife that we're seeing every day, which is occasioned by, of course, what you're saying, hard economic times, basically to be largely that is what is occasioning that. I want to address people and tell them it depends on how you process.
Okay.
Personally, Linda, I am not able to hold things. I am those people who can cause a lot of harm if I keep things to myself. Okay. So I try to talk to close people. Anytime I have a relationship issue, I try to vent it out by talking to people, because a problem talked is a problem half solved.
Yeah.
That's how I process. I probably live with a woman who doesn't talk about it and probably goes to prayer and, she has a way of venting. But if you look at me, I am able to heal quickly as opposed to her, because she's keeping things to herself. And we always argue that you're going out there to take our problems to people and what have you. I'm not taking our problems to people. I want to talk to people who can talk to me, and I'm very careful in choosing who I am going to talk to. So let us talk about our issues with people so that we are able to solve them. Otherwise, what will happen is we'll find ourselves shooting each other and killing each other and all those things. So I think it depends on how you process as a person. But generally, we have a lot of problems, and we need to get as many social activities that will help us, process and will help us vent out, like what he has alluded to. When they used to call them factual films, and they would come on every 3rd and 9th and the 21st. I would remember what it was and would go out there and you enjoy a movie. So tomorrow you're talking about Jackie Chan, and so there is a football event in the village, so you're out there. Nowadays, look at what happened. We're seizing down the women. We used to call them what? There used to be a lot at the village where women would go, changa, money, and those things. Nowadays, people are dealing with equity and M-Pesa and Fuliza and whatever you. Those has become our economic activity. So I think we need to do more in terms of social aspects so that we're able to have a way of venting out. Yes.
For a moment, I miss having neighbors. Like generally, you have neighbors yet you don't know them. So you don't have neighbors in real sense, and I think I agree to that. So let's not delve deep into that because, well, it's a conversation that we have that is later on at around 8 going all the way to 9, and we look at a different one altogether. And now this is what we speak of as we get into the conversation of the day: missing opposition. I know we almost got into it because, well, it's quite emotive, and it's also evident that Kenyans really wish for those moments when they could hear someone coming out genuinely, to question the government, as considered to be their role. And it even worries us more when we speak of a document that is going to empower an opposition, speaking of, a scenario where, they will get the payment and everything. I don't know whether they'll be good enough, genuine enough to proceed and counter the government as expected, or it's going to be a different scenario when we talk of, winner takes it all. We want to root that out, and we're going to have an official opposition with an office and everything. Just how much empowered will they be to handle these cases that we speak of today? I come to you, Brian, and still on matters of Third Way Alliance, you say that you have actively addressed some of the key issues, away from government or out of parliament. I'll tell you this, most of the Kenyans up to date probably do not know that a majority of the things that you proposed as Third Way Alliance were incorporated in the Building Bridges initiative, in the BBI bill as it stands today. And a majority will come here and tell you, what, hata afadhali ile, I'll speak in Swahili, hata afadhali ile punguza mizigo, they did this, and this. That is to tell you these people really know that, that one died, na iliisha, even nothing was incorporated in the BBI in regards to that. And so they would really get disappointed to hear that Third Way Alliance, in a huge way, is in support of the Building Bridges initiative or the BBI bill. What would you say about that?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it is important to note, and we have tried to really educate Kenyans and try to inform them, some of the decisions you have made, especially with regards to BBI. When we came up with the Punguza Mizigo initiative, you could see that all Kenyans from all parts of the country agreed with us that really that is the direction that the country ought to have taken, especially now, because we spoke to the issues of the common mwananchi down in the village down there, and we spoke to them in a manner that they could easily understand, they could easily relate with, and that's why they really appreciated and embraced our constitutional amendment bill. But now the issue is, these politicians, and I'm very sure that even our panelist, who is an MCA, he is one of the guys who shot down this bill in his county assembly. And I know if he's honest, he can say now that he did not shoot down this bill because he didn't believe in it. He shot it because he received instructions from some quarters that there is no way a small party that do not have a representative in parliament can be able to push such a national agenda and succeed. So this is the problem we have in this country. We came up with a very good document, but because of the political muscle, we are not able to push it and succeed. But We thank the BBI technical team, because when we went to them and presented our agenda, they were able to lift 11 points from our document exactly without any change in comma or full stop. 11 points that were speaking directly to the people, and they lifted them from our document and put them in the BBI report. So we said that because our agenda did not go through and 11 core points have been picked from our document to the BBI, then it is only fair that we support this document, because it has spoken to some of the issues that we wanted to, address. And that's why we have seen us now changing the tact and supporting this initiative for the sake of those 11 points that we put in that document.
Okay.
We have tried to enlighten Kenyans through the various media stations, and also just going directly to them and tell them that, what we had, at least 60% has been picked and put in this document. What they left is 40%, which we felt was also very critical. But because they have taken more than half, let us support this for the sake of the country.
Okay.
And that is where we are as Third Way Alliance Kenya.
And many would say that opposition does not necessarily mean you go against the government on everything it is that they present. I'll allow Akili to ponder on that later on. First, let's allow Mheshimiwa right to reply. And as you reply, Mheshimiwa, briefly, I'll ask this. You shut down Punguza Mizigo. You shut down BBI.
Yes.
As far as I'm
concerned.
By
the way,
what do you want?
By the way, Linda, I saw him. When they were voting for Punguza Mizigo bill in the county assembly, I saw him on the TV. He was shouting. In fact, he was a ring leader in shooting down this document.
He also shut down the BBI one, and so I'm curious to understand what is this that he wants anyway.
What that tells you is that I am a liberal thinker, and I shut down both the Punguza Mizigo and BBI. Actually, it was the only no in Kiambu, and you know that.
Yes.
Amongst 92 members. Because one, the Punguza Mizigo, as you're saying, what was picked up was 11 points, because there were so many other things that were bad in it. The problem is you're not given an opportunity to choose what is good and what is bad. Vote for what is good and what is bad. So ideally, that's why I shut down the entire thing, like I did with the BBI, because there are certain things I still don't agree with. So basically what I'm simply saying is, and this has always been my point, that we can do this later. We have far pressing issues that we need to address. Far pressing issues like the economic issues that we're discussing here. We need to cushion our people. We need to go out there and revamp this economy, have a strategy that is going to revamp this economy, as opposed to having these ulabalus of BBI that is going to cost us money that we're going to borrow, money that we're saying we haven't paid our county workers, we haven't been able to do so many things. So many people are getting laid off, and to me, that is the priority. To me, I don't want to see lives being lost by people who are angry because of they can't make ends meet. To me, that is the priority. Not BBI, not Punguza Mizigo, not these things. Those things we can do later. That is why I've shut down those two bills, and I've insisted we have far too pressing issues that we need to address as a country.
One would want to ask how later is later, but coming to
how
you,
later is when we get up, when we are up and running.
But when will we ever do that? Sometimes,
we will
in some of these reforms, Mheshimiwa, you need to understand that we look at short-term solutions and long-term solutions. And so in preparation of long-term solutions, sometimes you set up things that you hope that you'll get a good government that will have the goodwill to proceed and implement what it is that you will have enshrined in this particular document. And therefore, it is not proper to sit and wait until you get the right government to work on such.
I'm simply saying is, look at the administrative issues that we have in that document. Those are things that we can do now.
Yeah.
All right? Some of them requires the goodwill of the president and a cabinet memo, and they are done. So basically that's what I'm saying. We do not need to use money to do BBI, because most of the things, about 90%, are doable. Boundaries review is not something that you need BBI to do. The law is very clear. Wakili is here, can tell us. Things like health issues, those do not need to wait for Kenyans to go for a referendum. Those are things that we can do alongside revamping our economy and coming up with a strategy that is going to help our people. So basically that's my point. It's only about 5 or 10% that requires a referendum, and that can wait. These are the issues, administrative issues that can be done. These are issues that it requires the goodwill of parliament. So most of them can be done. Look at, for example, the issue of the World Development Fund. It was in the Senate. Parliament shut it down. This is something Parliament can do. Is it, no? Look at the issue of 15 to 95%. These are things that we can do, all right? That do not need to wait for BBI. That has been my point.
What if through BBI then they are done? We have tried it this way, it has not worked, and maybe after this document comes on board, then it strengthens the constitution as it stands, and in a huge way. Some of these things are addressed, are done for the benefit of the common mwananchi. What happens?
Do you know why Kenyans are crying out on social media? Because of the problem that they're having. Those are the immediate problems that we need to solve.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
We have a parliament that is in place, paid by those taxpayers who are required to do. Finally, it proposes that Parliament will change this law to read. It is there. Parliament is there. The Senate is there. Let them do it now.
Wakili, coming to you, and maybe I'll ask this even as you also respond to what it is that they have said. It's not always that opposition should go against what it is that government has done, and we keep saying that we have seen the handshake, we celebrate the handshake, we appreciate that, and on numerous occasions also we have seen us castigating Right Honorable Raila Odinga because we felt like some of the issues he raised were not necessary, were unnecessary bickering, was probably just a struggle and a fight against the government that really we did not need at that particular time. So why is it that it's now a different affair?
First of all, I like to agree with my colleague Mheshimiwa, and again agree with you when you're questioning Brian where Third Way Alliance went to. But in putting all that together, I want to remember the words of Dr. Mkhisa Kitui when he said in Kenya, the political party follows the person. The person does not follow the political party. Yeah. To the extent that the person becomes the ideology of any particular political party. And that ties us to where the conversation started from. Yeah. When it comes to Raila Odinga, you saw the headlines, people are saying ODM is at a panic because ODM is Raila Odinga is ODM. Right. UDA is William Ruto, William Ruto is UDA. ANC is Musalia Mudavadi, Wiper is Kalonzo, and so forth and so on. Yeah. Now, when it comes to the question that you're putting to bear on the issue of the opposition, for a long time, since the times of Moi, the main issue in the Kenyan political space were what we call the civil rights. The civil rights. We are at a space now where people are pushing for economic rights. When you listen to the BBI, since the conversation of county government that came in with Kibaki, starting with CDF, then people are starting to realize what is the importance of revenue distribution and revenue equity. Now, after that, revenues have gone down. People are starting to ask themselves, okay, fine, what sort of enterprises can we undertake? We are now at a space of economic rights. When you listen to, I don't know why, if I could be wrong, you correct me, Mheshimiwa, but from his donation, I could feel he has a bias towards the hustler movement.
All right.
And when you listen to that conversation, you hear the undertones of economic rights. Right. When you listen to His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi, the only thing he talks about are the economics.
Right.
Now, people like Raila Odinga, when you keep on saying the opposition is missing, they could also, maybe it's just a question of time, that now they have been thrown to an age and a time of a conversation they're not very conversant with. Okay? Now it's time for people now like Kina Mkhisa Kitui, Kina William Ruto, Kina Musalia Mudavadi, because these are people who were not able to undertake the initial conversation because it was not their space.
Okay.
It was not their forte. Now the opposition could be in that sense missing. Also, Kenyans are very interesting people. Kenyans like controversy.
Okay.
Wakenya wanapenda pali penye kuna udaku moto. When you want to hit today, everyone can switch to K24 when you have an exclusive story about an MP or an MCA who has been caught with somebody's wife or he's been caught stealing some money. But conversations on policy. You see, the American democracy that people keep on talking about was built on what we call politics. When you mention your agenda, it is policy, budget. Policy, budget. Policy, budget. Throughout. I mean, I'm sure you follow the debates.
Yeah, I do.
When you put a proposal, when you say you want to bring BBI, what's the budget? How is it going to affect the taxpayer? Now, the Kenyan politician, or I mean the Kenyan citizen, has no interest or maybe does not understand. I might not blame him so much. The 24-year rule, he was not subjected to that kind of politics.
Discuss a middle for 2 weeks.
Yes.
I mean.
You know? And then the Kenyan citizen also forgets too quickly. Containers are the Ministry of Health. KEMSA. Nobody is talking about them right now.
Forgotten.
So, like Kriegler said, when he finished his report, Kriegler said, the Kenyan politician is corrupt, but the Kenyan voter is more corrupt. To the extent that, now I want to come back to Third Way Alliance, to the extent that most politicians will make noise because their interest in terms of personal wealth growth is not being taken care of.
Right.
The point where we had politicians who had persuasion of ideology is long gone. Right. I'm yet to see one today.
Seated right here.
Yeah, I'm yet to see one today.
We will come to that.
So I think it's now the Kenyan citizen also is not following anything that is talking about policy. Right. He's looking at where also his bread will be buttered.
Right.
So there's so much that needs to just be reoriented and re-engineered and to rebuild the spirit of the Kenyan person.
We have a huge problem with the structures, the system, and we constantly speak about that. The policies, some of them that could be good but not implemented. Brian, do you suppose then that would even need an opposition, that would probably need an active, opposition within, because there is an opposition within government that I'll come to you, Mheshimiwa, to speak about, when we have good structures, when we have our policies well set, when we have, conversations that revolve around building and strengthening our economy? Would we need an active opposition today?
I don't think we need an active opposition. What we need is our members of parliament to do what they're expected to do and to do it freely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The challenge we have is that we do not have independent thinkers in parliament. They want to follow positions of their political, as the lawyer said. He has said that political parties are the ideologies of political parties is gravitated upon the political leaders in those political parties. So most of these members of parliament, instead of doing what they're supposed to do, what their role as per envisaged in the constitution, they are trying to follow what their political godfathers are saying. And that is where we are getting it wrong. So for me, the structure we need is a structure that would enable the members of parliament and senators to independently execute their mandate as envisaged in the constitution, and not even that active opposition. Sometimes, as you are saying, when we talk about opposition, we usually think about opposition in terms of opposing what the government is doing. And I think that has been passed by events. What we want is that, what is the law saying about what we are supposed to do to our people? And that is what we need to do. We don't need any structure to do that. You just need people who are sober, people who are moral, people who are independent thinkers, and people who can be able to go beyond the forces, the external forces from their party leaders and others, and do what is right. And that's why we as Third Way Alliance, we believe in social democracy. And by the way, in 2022, we are coming to Parliament for your information. And in fact, I want to appeal to my brother there, the lawyer, to consider being our member, if he's not a member currently, the MCA.
Why are you not appealing to Mheshimiwa? Why are you looking Mheshimiwa? Just because he quashed the Punguza Mizigo?
Even Mheshimiwa, I'm telling Mheshimiwa to change. I know he's a Jubilee member. Let him come to third way last, because we are going to have MCAs, over 100 MCAs in this country, and about 10 MPs in Parliament. So we are coming. And
you're not going for the big seat?
Sorry?
You're not going for the big seat? Not just yet.
No,
who are you going to endorse?
We are a progressive movement. Personally, by the way, for your information, I am not just speaking for the sake of speaking. I offered my candidature as a member of parliament in Ugenya constituency in a by-election on 5th of April 2019. And what the lawyer has said, our people are not driven by policy. They are driven by the fact that, can we have food in our stomach? You know? So I lost that election narrowly, but not because I didn't have better policies. It is because Kenyans are so hungry. They have been subjected to high levels of poverty that the only language they understand right now is the language of what can get into my stomach today. So if anybody can put food in my stomach today, whether they are crooks or not, they'll be voted for.
Well, we will wait. We'll task you to probably take us through what it is will be your manifesto, the policies that you're bringing on board. But that should be another time. Mheshimiwa, we come to you. Yes. Are you speaking on behalf of, another person? Because, well, at some point in time, Wakili could read so much in how you are articulating the issues. And so I'd love for you to respond to that. And even as you respond, there's been accusation that there's an opposition within government. Do you suppose that opposition is a healthy one in terms of, upholding democracy, in terms of allowing the people within the party or the members of the party have the space to articulate issues as it should be? Because then that is equally healthy if at all Kenyans are to realize anything out of the leadership that they have. And I mean, it is healthy to have factions, but sometimes these factions should be based on ideology as opposed to, the simple fights that we probably have witnessed.
Thank you. Let me answer to Wakili first, because it's insinuated something. I do not hold to any political affiliation in terms of ideology. I am a very independent thinker. I've been on this show for quite some time, and Linda will tell you that I articulate things as I see them, not based on what I think. I may agree on a certain way of, and I've come here and I've supported, ideas from so many ends, to the extent that you almost lose me in terms of where I belong and, that kind of a thing. I'm a Jubilee member anyway, because, but I still don't believe in so many things in Jubilee.
All right.
But be that as it may, you've asked a very interesting question, because let me go back to structures. You had mentioned about structures. We have very good structures in this country, and our problem is not structures. Because when you talk about structures and checks and balances, so many things are going bad while we have got very good registration. Wakil will tell you that. We have the PFM Act. People are stealing, right? And we have an act in place. We have the Anti-Corruption Act. We have so many acts of parliament that are so good, and we have a very good constitution, and we are doing these things amidst all those things, amidst all those registrations. So what we need to address is what Wakili is saying, our morality. We need to get right people for the right job. We need to address our morality. We need people who will go there and work for the people. We need people who will speak for the people, right? That's why my heart cries out for Kenyans, because they're all over social media, while they have leaders they elected who are actually who are the policy makers, who should now be speaking on their behalf and going to parliament, for example, and do adjustments in policies and regulations and legislations, okay? But they have let their people cry out there without listening to them. Why? Because they're serving their own their own interest somewhere. So the issue of morality should play in, and we need to get the right people. The question has always been, who are these right people? So morality should begin with the people themselves, so that out of that good morality within the people, they are able to get a good person and send them to parliament or to a county assembly, because that's where you begin. And I told you this the other day. For example, how many churches do I have in my ward?
Yeah.
I've close to about 300 churches in my ward alone. every time they want to do a harambe, of course, they must invite the Mheshimiwa, all right? They know how much I earn, it's in public domain.
Yes.
And they have an expectation that is placed on you in terms of how much you must contribute.
Right.
Okay? We have wakes and many functions that happen within your ward, and all of them, they want you to attend, all right? So the question is, having known how much you earn and they know you have a family, where do they expect you to get that money from? When you don't go, again, it becomes a problem. So it has to begin with the people themselves, knowing that we have elected this person not to come to our harambes, not to come to our mashakayas and those things. But we've elected this person to go and work for us. Let us ask him, where are our roads?
The reason why they even sometimes require or they demand for money from you even before they get to elect you is because they know right after they have elected you, they will never see you. And sometimes they even watch some of these sessions on television. It's even worse for county assemblies because in most cases we probably do not get the access to some of these debates. And so you see in Parliament, they probably do not address the issues that you want. I mean, how many times have we received reports of members of Parliament that barely speak in Parliament, that they do not front a bill? And therefore, they are better off eating the few coins that you can give during the Mashaka.
Those members of Parliament that don't talk, who took them to Parliament?
The very same people.
The very same people.
Okay.
Why? Because they ate in the first place. All right? And this person now, again, because you've eaten by money, the reason why they keep quiet is because now they have to get back their money.
Yeah.
They have to get enough to bring again to you. And in an unlikely event that you eject them, they have to get something to keep them running.
Right.
How much is that? Is an entire CDF for 3 years.
That's true.
That is supposed to go into development. So basically what I'm saying is we need to address moral issues right from the voter himself.
Yeah.
All right? The Wanjikul. So that's a different thing. So I'm saying we have structures, very good structures.
Right.
We need to address our morality. In as far as now the opposition and government working together, every time there's an opposition in Parliament, doesn't mean they, as you say, as you rightly said, at times they agree on issues. You do not become an opposition for the very sake of disagreeing on anything that government bring. But it's those things, because why do you become an opposition? It's because you lost out on an election and you have your ideologies that you thought you'd run a country with. And the function that took power is the function that probably Kenyans or people, the people thought the ideology that these people have in terms of a manifesto is better than this. So they made you government. So, but what the opposition still had a manifesto and still had a way they thought things would be done.
Yeah.
So basically that's what makes it opposition, so that when they think the government is doing the wrong things in terms of the way they thought they would run a country, they'll say, we have an option here. This is the way we should do it. Because opposition is not fighting. Opposition is saying, we have a better idea. So can we probably marry these two ideas and come out with a solution? But we are seeing a situation where things are even happening. Look at KEMSA. I am telling you, if we have a real opposition today, they will be on the street of the issue of IMF. And look at what happened in KEMSA. All of them were defending some officers. I saw the likes of Junet Mohammed. Nobody talked about it, and Kenyans have forgotten. So I think it's good that we have a real opposition and not have an opposition going to bed with the government. That is where we lost it.
We
lost it at the handshake.
As they would say, Wakili, only a fool would do the same thing and expect different results. And the opposition that we're speaking today...
Actually fools.
Fools, a couple of them, yes, so to speak, yes. And the opposition that we have today, and I'd want to look at it as the NASA umbrella as opposed to ODM, the people that have been there for quite a while, people who've cried foul at some point in time because they felt like they had been rendered opposition, unfairly, in a manner that is not free, a manner that is not fair. One, I'd want to ask, just how much does the vote of the common mwananchi or the voter count? Two, I'd want to know, did it get to that point where they realized, well, we're not getting anything out of this, and so let's cross over to this other side? Probably a proper indication that the opposition is never genuine, or at least the opposition that we're talking about today has never been genuine in the first place of addressing the issues of Kenyans.
Wow, that's a very interesting question because it boils down to questioning the integrity of the opposition. I think it should even be a wider question, not just the opposition. The leadership in this country, has it ever been honest? Has it ever been honest with the Kenyans? I think it boils down to that. And the whole question again boils down to that Kriegler thing that I like referring to all the time, that Kenyans have a high natural affinity to lies. We have low capacity to interrogate. Why? It's because maybe of some of the things that Mheshimiwa is talking about, that we are hungry. What Brian was saying, we are hungry. Somebody who's hungry does not have capacity to question. Questioning is by somebody who's satisfied and can face you and tell you that on this one you are wrong. There are leaders in this country, and there has been alternative voices in this country, but Kenyans do not give them the necessary support that they require to raise to the platform where the Richter scale can actually pick their voice. You'd be surprised. I mean, we've had people like Ole Kiapi. I don't know if you followed Ole Kiapi.
Yes, I did.
Ole Kiapi had very interesting solutions for this country. Who listened to him? Nobody. Third Way Alliance, when it started, I mean, I used to follow them, and they had very interesting policies and ideologies. Nobody would listen to them. Musalia Mudavadi, in as much as he's saying the opposition has been quiet, I've been following him, especially on this question of debt. He's been very consistent and saying that there is a problem. The economy is not doing well. Money is being stolen. You're borrowing money to put into infrastructure instead of putting into agriculture.
Would it be unfair to say that ANC is in bed with government?
Now, I was actually
Does
coming
it then
to
contradict?
I was actually coming to tie it to what you were saying to ask: does the opposition in Kenya, I mean, being opposition, does it mean that you have to oppose every? That's the question you posed. Does it mean that you have to oppose everything that government does? Now, you have to go back to the Kenyan constitution, the way it's structured today. Mheshimiwa will tell you that they work through committees. It becomes very difficult when you're working through a committee, maybe on the government side or in the opposition side. When you come out, you're coming out as a committee with one report. You've been following the BBI report and many other reports that have been coming out. When you remember the impeachment motions, when the reports come out, they come out as for that committee, not the political party. And that's why Brian was saying that when you go back to the constitution, it is the oversight role of parliament, not the opposition. That gave loophole to the so-called opposition parties. In fact, technically, there is nothing recognized in the Kenyan constitution as opposition.
All right.
Once you walk into parliament, you're just legislators. All right? So opposition, that term stuck with us because of the previous regime. You heard Mheshimiwa talk about shadow cabinet. We miss the days of shadow cabinet. The current constitutional dispensation does not allow us to have a shadow cabinet because we don't have the leader of the opposition. We don't have the right and left side of parliament like it used to be.
But within their majority leaders or minority leaders and everything, do they also not speak of a typical,
it's high lobby scenarios within committees. To the extent that even the majority leader of the so-called minority party and majority party. So these leaders will be lobbying for numbers on a particular agenda, not particularly pushing what you call alternative ideology. Now the scenario becomes more complicated where we have this handshake situation. So we've seen the numbers of ODM donated to government. Now, when you come back to ANC, these small parties stop and for a moment say, look here, we need to also survive. All right? And in the scenario of surviving, we will need government on certain agendas, and we will also need access to the system, even to push our agenda, not from a hard point but from a lobby point.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you are in bed. It just means that I'm using a softer diplomatic approach to say something different, to lobby you to see differently. Remember Musalia Mudavadi in Bomas 1.
Yeah.
You remember the 5-point agenda that he raised,
yes.
that actually William Ruto also articulated later, and he said, for now, we're not going to support this thing unless we see this, and the other. And we will. After that, the president opened it up. At that point, ODM had said, we are not opening nothing. But Musalia Mudavadi, in his diplomatic, soft approach, used what we could call the back door, approached the president and talked to him and told him this thing can't work.
It is interesting, they say squeezes miaka ya backdoor imeisha. You have to come.
So it is, I think it's just a change of tact that Kenyans are not used to seeing. Kenyans are used to seeing the hard, combative sort of opposition on the street. And people like Musalia, people like Kalonzo are offering maybe a different approach. Mukhisa is now also in the space, and I've been following him, listening to some of the issues he's saying. I've traveled the world, I've seen different approaches. Can we sit down? Can we have a different conversation on some of these things?
Can we trust them?
The question that begs for an answer here, and probably as we look in our friend, probably is going to help us answer that.
Brian,
Is that really working or not?
Can we trust them?
Because you see, now we're looking at the concept that we just clearly defined versus what we previously used to have as an opposition. This soft way of looking at things, and probably getting to government and trying to use your convincing prowess to convince government and president to do things, is it really working for Kenyans?
And that's why
again, some question is government listening to you? Is the president listening to you because of another form of interest?
Yes, because if you look at what is happening, is you give me and I give you. That is why Jubilee, most of the Jubilee members that existed in certain positions in parliament exited because they were able to get numbers from these so-called friends and allies who've come. Right?
Yes.
And they lost so many seats, and they had their people put in those positions. So, in as much as they're coming with ideas, as you want to tell us, they're also coming with some crafty way of getting into power and enjoying positions and having their way in government. All right?
But there is no political party. You'll agree with me. There is no political party.
In terms of policy, in terms of coming up with substantive things that are going to form policy that is going to help Kenyans, we are yet to see that. We have only seen political formations for individual benefits and not coming together to bring in ideas to have policies that will develop this country.
Yes.
There are two things that I just want to
briefly
reply. Briefly, yes. Number one, Masinde Muliro used to say, a politician without ambition is a dead politician.
Okay.
I just heard you say that you don't know if you should referring to him as member of parliament.
Yes.
She has always referred
to member of parliament.
Yes.
So I'm thinking maybe he's looking at becoming member of parliament. That's ambition.
Yes.
Growing. There is no political party that comes together for any other objective other than forming government.
Okay.
Right? So all these political parties are looking at ways in which they can form government. And an endorsement, a friendship, all ways possible to form government are available to them. And for me, I'm thinking there is nothing absolutely wrong.
My point is
with
this.
That
Constitutional amendment.
The only thing I wanted to tell you, Mheshimiwa, is that the question of the BBI, for instance, if BBI comes in, then we're going to see, coming back to the topic, we're going to see a stronger
opposition.
And I put it in quotes because I have some issues with that.
Okay.
We might see a more structured, constitutionally formed opposition to the extent that if you cross over, then it will have constitutional repercussions, which is not the scenario with the current constitutional
and therefore we cannot question the opposition as it stands.
Of course, morally.
Morally we can. Yes,
morally they are failures.
Yes.
But legally, can you put them to task?
You cannot.
You can't.
My point was,
we have to close.
My point was only one. That as all this was playing out, we lost the people.
That's true. And speaking of losing the people, the legislators back in Parliament, you say that we should not even think about an opposition, Brian, that we should focus on them that we elected to represent us. But I'll tell you again for free, they cry foul. They say that there's been a lot of interference, that if you're under Jubilee Party, you have to sing, you have to talk Jubilee. If you're on this other side, you have to speak ODM and everything. And in most cases, it becomes hard for them to even deliberate or even question or review or even legislate on these crucial issues. As we close,
I think the challenge is our moral standing, as legislatures. Yeah, because if you look at what happens in the first world countries, I mean, you don't see in the US, for example, that the Democrats are being whipped towards taking a particular position, or the Republicans, being done the same. People come and debate issues, and they agree and they disagree until they arrive at a position that is good for the people. So if we can inculcate this in our parliament, then I think I still maintain that we don't need to have an opposition. Opposition, the official opposition entrenched in the constitution is not going to solve this issue. We just need independent thinkers, people who can think beyond themselves and think what is good for the public good. That is what we need in this country. Yeah, so men and women should rise up. And we need men and women who can be able to think strategically, to think ambitiously, and to think independently. Once we have these characters in parliament, I don't need any structure. I don't need any law. Yeah, right. We just need those kind of. And those people are here. Those people are me. Those people are you, Linda. Those people are my brother, Anthony. He's now convincing me. And those people are my brother, Kibet. So we need to rise up. Right. We need to rise up and take those positions. Well. And we'll have a very smooth country. But putting all laws in place, even if we entrench this in the constitution, still people will be whipped in their factions, and we'll find exactly the same thing. All right. So that is my take.
Brian Omondi, Vice Chair, Third Way Alliance, Nick Biketi, who's a lawyer, and lastly, Anthony Ikonya, Member of County Assembly, Kiambu Township. We close it at that. How many seconds? 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay.
Just tell Kenyans that the only thing we need right now at these very hard economic times is to just stay alive. Make sure you stay alive. Tomorrow could be better.
All right, thank you so much. We close it at that. No parting shots for you, gentlemen.
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Yes, probably I just want to appeal to my brothers in the studio to ensure that now they form part and parcel of this movement called Third Way Alliance.
I will send my invoice. That is as good as an advertisement. I'll send my invoice right after this. 5 seconds.
I'm just saying, chapter 6. Let Kenyans have manners. That's the only missing thing.
Indeed. Well, we close it at that. Thank you so much. We cross over to a different conversation altogether, as mentioned earlier on matters mental health.
The country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't lose.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
back to the seasons of my youth.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with the desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
Aitoe ile garlic inafaa itoe, that standard garlic.
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday when the clock hits 7:30 p.m. Owning a home is a keystone to wealth. And building one can be quite daunting. Well, the realtor gives you the do's and don'ts.
There are so many brokers in the market who just want to tell you I can be able to supply.
And groundbreaking.
So we clear the area and we set out the place where the house is going to be laid down.
We talk homes, land, and property.
With me, Karanzi Daniel.
Every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Next episode of Coffee with the Movie.
But today I'm with Bamboo, the African band too.
Funny how the enemy uses ladies a lot.
I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, but his statue, it looked like the angel of death or something like that, with a black robe and a skeleton and it's holding a pole.
Yeah.
With it's a sickle. It's
Catch this story every Sunday at 8 p.m. As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I
Ch-
don't
General
lose.
Gay-
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my youth.
every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Of Untold Stories.
Last laps, and we talk matters mental health. Mental health is a state of balance in our very own thoughts, emotions, our behaviors. You know, when we talk mental health, we know positive mental health allows us to feel good about ourselves, you know, about life, supporting our ability to participate in our day-to-day activities, and equally, you know, just get to that point where we accomplish our goals. Regardless of the same, we also face tough times in regards to just how we relate with people, how life is, you know, where we come from, the kind of people that we are. And it's actually not our fault. Sometimes it's even worse for certain individuals. And that's the reason why it is important for us to discuss this, to talk about mental health, to find solutions as to what, you know, we'd be able to do to ensure that we create that aspect of balance. We've heard the gentlemen on board, you know, in the previous segment, some of them echoing some of the things that we probably need to go back to as a society, so that at least we get that equilibrium, or we get that state of, you know, at least someone being somewhere, you know, afloat and, you know, having a capacity to overcome some of the tough times that come along with life. At this point of COVID-19, it'll be, you know, unfair for us to have sessions, whole shows without discussing matters mental health. This has been considered as a shadow pandemic in the sense that, you know, many people are going through tough times right now. You have lost your job, you probably have lost your family, because I mean, a majority were confined in one place, you know, that home setup, something they were not used to. And, you know, it got them to levels of life that, you know, one would consider as a rock and hard place. Sometimes you tend to lose some of these important things that you have. And so much is happening in the face of very many individuals. And that's the reason why we termed it necessary to have this conversation. Joining me for the sake is Mike Wanjengu, who is the programs coordinator of TINADA. They'll be telling us what TINADA does. Equally later on, we expect to get a hold of Beryl Annie Arogo, who is a psychologist. Mike, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too.
And I keep saying that we've talked about mental health for the longest of time, but, you know, the situation gets dire, you know, times are getting even tougher. Then we ask ourselves, what is this one thing that we're not doing right, even as we have these candid discussions? Why is it that, you know, cases of, people being unhealthy mentally are on the rise, as opposed to us finding solutions, even as we keep talking about that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you very much for that question. And I would first attribute that to the fact that as a country and even as the world, we have not really paid attention to mental health. We have always neglected mental health and thought of it as something that is not an issue at the moment. Mm-hmm. But what happens is that we find that there is no health without mental health. And as such, because there's no systems, no structures that have been put towards mental health, then we find ourselves in a situation where we are having a pandemic that is COVID-19, but we are also slowly building towards a pandemic which is mental health issues. Mm-hmm. Because every day you hear about cases on the rise. People have died by suicide. People maybe there is conflict in the household, and people maybe kill each other, and this is attributed towards the fact that we have not had candid discussions about mental health. We have not brought mental health to the level whereby we can discuss it even with our children in the living room. We can talk about politics, we can talk about anything else, we can talk about all other aspects of health, but when it comes to mental health, then we find that it is shunned and it is not talked about.
Hold it right there. Just how clear is this subject? Because Maybe it's because people do not quite understand what it is when we're talking about mental health. I mean, probably just paint a picture of what we could be talking or what we could be discussing when we're talking about, people attaining that aspect of mental health, because you rightfully put it, there is no health if there is no mental health. Just what is this?
Before you cut me short, I wanted just to point out a very key aspect of why people are not talking about it. This is because of the stigma, discrimination, and the myths and misconceptions that are around mental health. We think that if someone has a mental health condition, he has been bewitched, maybe he did something wrong, and that in itself has made us look at mental health as a taboo in terms of our African culture. But we find ourselves that we are in a situation whereby people are facing very hard conditions, very hard challenges, like as we have seen with COVID-19, that people have lost their jobs, people have lost their marriages, have lost their relationships, people have lost loved ones, and with all this, and they have no one to talk to. They have no one who can be there for them to talk about this. So this has affected their mental health, and they find themselves in a situation whereby they don't know about it, so they don't know where to go about it. So as we paint the situation is very
a bit of a twist right there, matters technology, but not to worry. We are fixing that so that we are able to have this candid conversation.
Yes, sorry?
Yes. Yes?
Sorry?
Mike.
I didn't get the question.
Continue. No. We just had a hitch, so I was just trying to take the viewer through the conversation, and now we're back to you so you can articulate the point that you were articulating before.
Yes, so I was just saying that because of the myths and misconceptions, then we find ourselves in a situation whereby people view mental health as a taboo. That a lot of issues that we see in the community, that people are not able to articulate, to know even where to go and get mental health care. And just to paint the situation how dire it is, you find that even in Kenya, in terms of personnel, in terms of taking care of patients' mental health, they are very like have not been employed. Yes.
All right. Sometimes that's the reason why I asked just what is, mental illness for that matter, because while many could be in denial, while there could be that aspect of stigma, I would want to believe there are numerous, conditions, common conditions for that matter, that could be attributed, to mental illness. And sometimes you realize that some of these people actually do not have an idea that this is some level of mental instability. So how do they get to that level of understanding that, what, I am not well, and this is not normal?
Yes. You have put it rightly. There are very many conditions that someone is suffering from a mental health condition, and even talk about, and that is depression. People normally just talk, I'm depressed, but in the real sense, depression is a very serious condition. If not, it can even lead to other dire conditions, like maybe one can take life through suicide. And depression, then we have a condition that we call schizophrenia, and in schizophrenia we find that this is the point where that is the stimulus that we that comes to us, like when we are in our society and maybe we see danger, we flee, but we realize that this person normally now when they see the danger, they don't flee, they don't respond to the normal stimulus the way we are supposed to, which means that they've deviated from the norm. Another aspect is that maybe they hallucinate. They can maybe be seeing things that are not even real, or things that are not even within their environment. That is where we say that they even have other stimuli that we cannot be able to see. And apart from schizophrenia, also we find that another common condition is what we call bipolar disorder, bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and this is mostly characterized by one. period of depression, that is where someone feels very low. And at another times, periods of mania. Mania, we say, is hyperactivity, where someone is very active. They want to do everything. They want to do everything and nothing at the same time. They want to maybe find themselves very much involved in everything that they want to do. So these are some of the most common conditions that we see in our community. And now there are others that come about, like intellectual disabilities. And one of them is autism. We find that children are born with autism, and this is intellectual disability that is genetic, and mostly we find that people are born with it. Yes. Back to you.
All right. Yes, and a couple of others maybe that I would not be able to mention as at now. Just how expensive is it then for one to address some of these illnesses that you speak about? Let's talk about the general ones. When you say that it's good to reach out and speak about the condition or what it is that you're going through, because most of the people actually do not speak out, and so they end up making the situation even worse. And so, like you said, sometimes it's hard to get the right people to speak to, and then you are rendered to a point where you have to seek services of a psychologist or something of the sort, which many consider to be quite an expensive affair. Does it have to be that expensive, or is it an assumption that has been painted by the society out here?
Truth be told, it is not an assumption. Mental health is very, and especially if the situation is not handled early enough or detected early enough, then when it deteriorates, then even the cost become much more. And this is not only because of the people who are talking about it, but it is actually brought about by the demand supersedes the supply. That is, we have very few personnel in terms of catering for mental health, and that we see that the costs go high. And also that the government has not invested much in terms of mental health. And as we speak now, there's an awakening that the government has come to realization that mental health is very key, and they're starting to put structures and systems in place to be able to cater for people's mental health. But just to put into perspective, normally for a session with a psychologist, mostly it's an average of around 2,000 shillings per session. That is per session. But you have seen bodies that have come out that are trying to subsidize these costs and come to do a fairer cost of maybe 1,000 shillings per session or per act even. And now, that being said, also we have institutions like SIGNET organization whereby we offer these counseling services mostly pro bono. But again, this is limited to the capacity of our staff, because we don't have very many counseling psychologists. But the few that we have, we try to have sessions which are pro bono, so that we can give back to the community, and so that as many people as we helped can be able to reach help. Yeah.
All right, and even as some of these services could be readily available, we could be having individuals that are pretty much close to us and would be helpful, in solving the situation that we probably are going through, or maybe even lessening the chances of getting to that dire state of mental illness. It's not always easy for us to come out and speak, especially for men. I mean, just what is being done towards getting people to speak out when they are experiencing tough times, or when they are experiencing some, unusual occurrences in their lives?
The situation actually painted is very dire for men, especially because in the African context, men have been made to feel like they should not be vulnerable, that they should not maybe them saying about their problems is a sign of weakness. But we have come to a realization that with awareness creation, with going down to the community, which is what TINADA does, we create awareness in the community about what mental health is and how serious mental health is, and we encourage the community and especially men to come out and talk about it, to come out and be able to have these candid conversations about their mental health and what they're going through, without necessarily being labeled as weak or being less of a man in that case. But now, as we continue to put this into perspective, you find that even with when we come to the very dire situation which is death by suicide, you find more men die than women. This is attributed to very many factors. One of them is that men do not talk about the issues. The other factor is that men also use very crude methods when they want to take their lives through, take their own lives. And this used to the number of men who actually die by suicide to that of women. Yeah, so the situation is very dire, and for men especially. But we encourage them. We do community sensitization. We do radio talk shows. We even come on media like we have come today to be able to encourage men to be able to come out and talk about their mental health, because mental health there is no health without mental health. It is a very important aspect of our health. Yeah.
Well, this conversation we are having in relation to what has played out at this point of the pandemic, and I'm not trying to say that on other normal occurrences then we would not have this conversation. We've had it, we constantly have it, because, well, the cases are equally on the rise, and we are grateful that you could find time for us. But then, just how then do we get people to speak before it is too late? Because look at what is playing out. Look at the papers today. They detail of scenarios where, at the family setup, it's no longer safe. Then, husband kills wife, wife kills husband, wife kills, mother kills children, children kill parents. And, all these cases are here, and there are so many. I mean, you go to the bottom, you realize that it's always attributed to, mental instability. How do we get people speaking out as early as possible to evade such?
I think the main way that we can be able to get people to speak about this is about creating awareness about mental health.
Yeah.
As I said before, the biggest challenge is that there are a lot of myths and misconceptions that surround mental health. And as such, even in a family setup, you find that even in a family setup, maybe they're having dinner, they can talk about everything else but not mental health. Not the mental health of maybe the father of the family or the mother or the kids. How are they doing? How is their mental health? Are they dealing with a number of issues that they're not able to talk about? And if we get to the point where we can have these conversations even in the household, this will be able to reduce the number of cases of mental health, because most mental health conditions can be prevented, but because we do not talk about them, then we wait for them until they become very dire so that we can now be able to respond to them. But I would say again, awareness creation is very key, that we come out and create awareness about mental health. I always like to use a very good example of when HIV came into came into Kenya or into the world even. You saw the amount of awareness creation that went into it. There were billboards everywhere. I remember when I was a young boy, I would see there was a very big billboard close to our home that used to have a sign that, have you been tested? Go and get tested for mental health. And then at the side, it will have that translated in mother tongue so that even the layman person can be able to understand this. So this is the way to go. This is what we need to do. We need to create awareness about mental health. We need to have this conversation that there is no health without mental health. And we also need to have the government invest in systems and structures that are geared towards improving the mental health of the community, of the country at large, and also to focus on community-based mental health, that we can have mental health integrated into the community strategy, that people can get help for mental health even at their household level, that the CHVs, whom we call community health volunteers, can be able to even screen when they're going to do the normal data intake in the household level. They can be able to identify cases of mental health and mental health conditions, and be able to refer them to the necessary places where they can be able to get help. Yes.
Well, how
awareness
much more?
Creation is the
Okay, how much more needs to be done? Because I'll tell you that we have talked about this for quite a while, and really not much seems to happen in terms of progress. And you put a very clear picture or an example, taking us back to those moments of HIV in the country and across the global fraternity. And, in creation of awareness, there was also creation of stigma, fear, and, a lot of myths surrounding this. It has taken us quite a while to get to a point where we understand that actually it is not as bad as it is being painted. So even as we create this awareness, how do we do it? How much more do we do it? And how do we do it, in a good way, to a scenario where we'll avoid creating stigma and all this negativity that will be attached to that?
Okay, just to put perspective, I recognize that actually there was stigma that came about from the awareness creation of HIV and AIDS, and to say the least is that in time, we have been able to come out of that level of stigma and come to the realization that HIV is a disease like any other. And so the same happens with mental health, that we need to talk about it, we need to create awareness about mental health, and it's already stigmatized. The stigma is already there. The stigma in society is already there. And so the only way to go about it is having the clear facts about mental health, demystifying the myths and misconceptions that are in the community about mental health, and portraying mental health as what it is. Mental health is a disease like any other. People, our community, our country needs to understand that, so that people, when they feel that they're not okay, they can be able to reach out and get help. But also in that aspect, that's why I really put that across the aspect of the community health volunteers, which is the community the community strategy. The community strategy is a very noble idea, and very noble concept. And through the use of CHVs who are in charge of about 10 households each, then we can be able to cascade this information down and dissect it for the family, so that they can be able to understand it in a manner that we shun away from myths and misconception and get the facts, the true picture of what mental health is.
All right, and quite a long way to go, but then again, I'm glad that there's that progress, and entities like TINADA were out here to push for the same. Mike, allow me to take a quick break, and then we come back to expound some more on the shadow pandemics that have cropped up, courtesy of the pandemic that we have today, and equally courtesy of the mental instability that we witness today.
Yes.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections,
as the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5-year term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this: are you not taking advantage of my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that I don't lose.
As we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates.
The position of the Prime Minister will go to a party with the most elected members.
I clearly know that neither Raila nor Ruto are in the work plan on the roadmap for transition as far as the government is concerned.
Informative health discussions, business, farming, Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs, and music bands.
Back to the seasons of my youth.
Every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Did you know that your business keeps our economy running?
You need the skill, not the papers.
Always tell yourselves, one day at a time. You can't do everything under one roof.
Over time, I've had to realize that good things take time.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Before the markets open, farmers begin their day, each with a desire to produce the best. But how can they increase the numbers, maintain the standards,
Aitoi ile garlic inafaa itoi, that standard garlic.
reduce the cost,
We spread our risk.
and yet remain the best? Kilimo Diaries, every Sunday when the clock hits 7:30 p.m. Owning a home is a keystone to wealth. And building one can be quite daunting. Well, the realtor gives you the do's and don'ts.
So many brokers in the market who just want to tell you I can be able to supply.
And groundbreaking.
So we clear the area and we set out the place where the house is going to be laid down.
We talk homes, land, and property.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Still with me, Mike Wanjengu, who's the program's coordinator at NADA, and is joining us virtually. Mike, coming back to you as we discuss matters mental health and the numerous things that we've touched on. Out of this, so much has been born. I mean, we speak of gender-based violence, we speak of, addiction and drug abuse. This has gone further to a level that is extremely dire, because then we look at our young turks, the youths, the teenagers, involving themselves in such. Well, this equally attributed to the levels of mental instability, that these children or these kids are experiencing at the level of the homes and so much so. Are we absent in the lives of these young turks? Are we not alive to the fact that they probably need the attention of the society, of the people that are close to them, that it has gotten to this point?
Yes, thank you much for that question. And just to put that into perspective, alcohol and drug abuse is actually a component of mental health. Okay. And with alcohol and drug abuse, we find that it's a component of mental health that's normally being neglected and normally being put aside from mental health. And we find that our young ones are really suffering, the youth are really suffering from alcohol and drug abuse. And this is brought about by what you've mentioned, that we don't have time to talk to them, that we have forgotten that we are raising a generation, that we are so engrossed maybe with the daily activities of maybe livelihood as parents, and that we get to the point whereby we forget that our kids need us, our kids have issues. And so what do? They get to have other coping mechanisms with their own pressures. And one of them is alcohol and drug abuse. And you'll find that most youth are actually engaged in one form or the other of drugs. Mm-hmm. And the most commonly abused are mostly alcohol and what we call marijuana or bang or bangi for the layman. Mm-hmm. And this is brought about mostly because of availability, and the other aspect that brings about this is because that these children and the youth have been neglected, are having issues, but no one is listening to them. And so they turn to what we call negative coping mechanisms, and they now engage in alcohol and drug abuse. And just to put that also into perspective is that the alcohol, drug and drug use also contributes towards mental health issues, in the fact that if someone has a genetic condition where that is inherited from the family, the alcohol and all the drugs can be able to actually bring it out and it not to become latent, but actually to come out and exhibit symptoms. Mm-hmm. And that in itself also contributes to the burden of mental health conditions that we see in the society. And also alcohol in itself as a drug is a depressant. And as a depressant, from the word depressant, we get the word depression. And also it contributes to the number of cases of people who can be able to get depressed, and also maybe get to the dire condition of maybe taking their own lives through suicide. And this in itself needs a lot of attention, because NACADA has been on the front line, and another youth organization have been working hand in hand with NACADA to be able to create awareness about drug, and also to be able to have policies that have been made in counties and even in the country at large that has governed the use and distribution of alcohol and drug abuse and drug use, to be able to be put into effect. That being said, also we have seen an increase in cases of gender-based violence, that there is instability in their homes. One, due to the pandemic, people are spending more time in their homes. And now spending more time in their homes, people do not get to go out and cope the way they used to cope. And now, as a fact that maybe they have lost their jobs, or they have been put on compulsory and maybe even unpaid leave until maybe better, we see that people now have lost the source of livelihood. And so this has also contributed to add about on the pressure that they are facing and increase in terms of stress. The stress levels in the country are at an all-time high. This now brings about what we see, the symptoms and the signs that we are able to see. We see that the conflict in the family. We see that people in the family are having a hard time even relating to someone who is close to you, supposed to be close to you, like your wife. That's why you see that there's an increase in gender-based violence cases. People taking the lives of their loved ones. People maybe even using chopping off maybe parts of both of their loved ones. People in the household also maybe killing all their children and the spouse and ultimately taking their own life also, because we have not focused on mental health. All this is as a result of mental health. If we could have had very robust mental health system in the country, whereby we have great awareness about mental health, and that in the community there are places where the community can be able to access services for mental health, then we will be seeing a very different picture, whereby people will be going out and seeking help. But even as we spoke earlier, and said that this help at the moment is very expensive, and this also contributes to the fact that people are not able to come out and go and help for their mental health. That being said, now, even alcohol and drug abuse and gender-based violence are correlated, because as a result of maybe intoxication, as a result of the use of drugs, find that there is impaired judgment to an individual, and so they can be able to engage in acts that maybe they will regret later. But at the moment when they are actually doing this, they're doing this, they're not able to even comprehend what they're doing, or they're not able to have that judgment to know what they're doing. That being said, we really need to focus on mental health and even a kind of awareness about mental health, and bringing this conversation to the household so that people can be able to talk about this, and so that you can be able even to get these other shadow issues that are coming up, like GBV, like increased alcohol and drug abuse, and such. Yes, thank you.
Well, and treatment journey, I'd want to believe, begins at the level of diagnosis. And you speak highly of just how it is important for one to look at the signs, the differences that occur. And so even as you look at this, I'd also want to believe that the journey of treatment is different depending on an individual and whatever it is, or the condition that they're going through that falls under mental illness. So how important then would it be for someone to know themselves, in terms of character, in terms of how they can handle things? Because the previous segment we had, some gentlemen here. One of them was speaking of a scenario where he's a person who's outspoken, so can go out there, speak of their troubles, and it eases the pressure that they have. And, equating that to that one, or maybe just comparing that to a different person that is close to them who does not speak, chooses to keep it to themselves. And so how important is it for one to understand their character, the kind of person that they are, so that they can start, seeking to get a solution, or, to get help, or just get to understand how they take the process of healing?
Thank you very much for that. And just to continue to emphasize the fact that self-awareness, that's what it's called. Self-awareness is a very critical component in terms of managing mental health. And you find that in psychoeducation, this is a very important component, whereby the people are being taught how to understand themselves, the different personalities, the different temperaments that are out there, that people need to understand themselves. And to give a very good example, I am one person who was not able to understand myself before I got to the point where I could understand that this is my personality. I used to be a very big introvert. I used to keep things to myself. I used to want to handle issues by myself. I remember even when I was in school, I used to face challenges in school, but I would not even bother the teacher that, hey, I want to call back home and say that I'm facing this 1 and 2 challenges, and could I get help? Or even face that teacher and tell them that, hey, I'm having a problem, and could you kindly help me in this and that? So before I understood that, I was it forced me to go down a very rough patch. And as to that effect, I want to say that I am a recovering addict of actually 4 years. I actually started to cope using drugs, and I used drugs, and they actually made things worse. And now when I got to get the information about understanding understanding my mental health and about even getting free from addiction, I was able now to be given psychoeducation, and in it I was able to taught how to understand myself, how to know myself, how to know who is my congener. And through that information, I was able now to understand what are the issues that can be able to trigger me to be able to have this negative mental health, or to be able even to go back to negative coping mechanisms such as alcohol and drug abuse. And in self-awareness, I found that there are ways of coping. There are positive coping mechanisms. One of them is just understanding myself and knowing that if I go down this path, then all these are triggers that will be able to trigger me into maybe going into a state of mental health that I would not want to be into. So that in itself, self-awareness is very crucial, is a very crucial component of actually even understanding ourselves. And even because the first person who knows that something is wrong is the self. There is no one who can be able to understand what one person is thinking apart from themselves. So even understanding your own patterns of thoughts and knowing that, this is different, I've deviated from my normal, then you can be able to seek help. So self-awareness is a very critical component that really needs to be addressed, and it's very much addressed in psychoeducation, where people are given education about themselves.
Well, thank you so much for that and for briefly sharing your story. I'm sure then it paints a picture of hope for very many who are watching us this morning. After that, then choosing the person to talk to, choosing the person to go to, choosing the person to, probably help you walk through the journey is crucial. How do you get to that point? How do you make that crucial choice?
For that crucial choice, actually, one, we say that there are people whom we trust. There is our inner circle. Everyone has an inner circle. And in that inner circle, you can identify that person whom you relate with well, whom you know can hold you in confidence, because that is mostly the most critical part of it. Someone who can be able to listen to you, someone who can be able to share with your experiences, and so that person can be able to keep them in confidence. We have seen very many cases of people maybe when they have shared, and people maybe now use those stories maybe to attack them or maybe to shame them. But in that aspect, that's why I say it really has to be someone in your inner circle, someone whom you trust, someone whom you can be able to share with. That being said, that being put aside also, we find that there are avenues where you can get help. For example, Tinada Youth Organization is out here, and we are giving a listening ear. We're giving a listening ear to the community. We are offering pro bono services of mental or for counseling. And in that concept, then we find that you can be able to access these services. And I know it's not only Tinada Youth Organization. There are very many other organizations out there who are offering these services to the community. And you find that if the community is aware about them, then they can be able to make use of these avenues and maybe to be able to get help for the mental health issues that they're facing in the family. And the other thing is that we need to make our homes a safe space. Parents need to talk to their children. Children need to talk to their parents, and even the parents need to talk to each other. We need to be our brothers and sisters keeper, because it starts with us. It starts with us. I can be a place where someone can come and talk to. A brother can come and talk to. Someone even in my organization can come and talk to me and tell me that I'm going through this and that, and I could really use some help, or what can I do about this? Sometimes we accept that we might not be having the best solutions, but what we know is that when someone opens up to you, that listening ear only is a form of therapy, that they can say that someone has listened to them. And most often than not, when we're not in a position to help, then we always know that we can be able to refer this person to someone who can be able to help them. And this being said, also, I would like to paint a picture that we have seen an increase of people who go even to other non-conventional methods of getting help. We have seen people going to traditional healers. We have seen people going to churches, faith-based organizations, whereby they even talk to their pastors and their priests or their vicars. And these people have been a very strong pillar in the community in terms of offering help in terms of mental health. So we say that we make use of that which is available to us, that which we know, and that we as citizens, as brothers, as sisters, we can be each other's keeper. That when someone approaches you and wants to talk to you about an issue, especially around mental health, then kindly lend them an ear, because maybe that 5 minutes that you give to them could save their lives.
All right, that is an incredible approach, so to speak. Just how then is the society receiving some of these entities that are out here to help? How much more of help do they also get and support from the government aspect, just so to push for this? Because like you say, there is more need for us to go out there and create awareness. But you know, this can only be instrumental, this can only work if received well on the ground. And we're speaking of scenarios of stigma and all that. How do we get the society to that level? You know, they're going to shift, you know, focus, try and give an ear to some of these entities that are equally giving services on pro bono basis.
Yes. Interesting that you've mentioned that, because even as TINADA, we actually faced some resistance from the community when we were starting out, because people had the old myths and misconceptions that mental health is a taboo, is an issue that doesn't need to be discussed. But with sensitization and with the community also seeing the work that we do, seeing that we are changing lives, we are touching lives of people, that we can be able to say that we have success stories, people who have actually gone through the process, people who are deemed unfit to be in society previously, people who are deemed to be not fit mentally, coming back to a state whereby they can be able to be even to be self-independent, then this paints a picture of hope in the community. And now the community opens up and has embraced us, and has actually even they now even make the referrals to us. And so, this being said, apart from awareness creation also, the people who have actually undergone mental health issues and have come out successfully can be instruments of hope, can be people who can be out there to change this narrative about mental health out there. I'm very happy that even in the social media, we see young people who are very passionate about mental health coming out and speaking out about their experiences and what they went through and how they even got to get out of it. We accept that no situation is, all situations are very different, but someone understanding that someone went through what they went through and they've been able to come out of it, that hope, that spark of hope is what is needed, and is what even pushes these people now to come out and speak about their own issues also, and come out and seek help. So even as we create awareness in the community, we in the community, apart from us as organizations also, we have individuals like I myself who are out here talking about our experiences, painting a picture of hope, and actually encouraging people to come out and speak about their mental health. Apart from that, then the government also needs to increase their effort towards mental health. More resources need to be allocated towards mental health. It's a sad picture that in the country that less than 1% of our annual health budget is allocated to mental health. And also even in the county levels, we find that there are counties that don't even have budgets for mental health or money put aside for mental health. And that in itself is a very dire situation, because mental health affects us all, and there is no health without mental health. So investing in mental health, putting systems and structures for mental health is a very crucial component. That being said, I'm also happy that there is a mental health amendment bill that's in the Senate that is being discussed. And as organizations, as stakeholders, and as citizens, we have been able to make submissions for this amendment bill, so that we can be able to see more changes in the community, that to see more being done in the community in terms of putting systems and structures that towards mental health. Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's speak for a moment, matters positivity. Are we making great strides? Are we getting to a point where we are going to tame this? Are we getting to a point where, the global fraternity, the world at large, the country right here is going to receive this message and, go out there, be on the forefront in driving the message of making sure that we as a people get to that state of, proper mental health?
Thank you very much, because things are not that dire also, because now with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, more light has been shown on mental health, and people have realized just the importance and how important mental health actually is. And now, this being said, we have also seen the global narrative changing. As we celebrated World Mental Health last year, the theme was actually better investments for mental health, or more investments for mental health. So we are seeing a situation whereby even the global community is actually waking up to the fact that mental health is an issue, and they are pushing for for financing or resource allocation towards mental health, and this itself is a very good picture. That being said, also we have seen our president, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, coming out numerous times to speak about mental health and how dire the situation about mental health is, and this in itself is a message of positivity. Even though he was speaking about how bad the situation is getting, that in its level that the head of state has been able to recognize that mental health is a key issue, and even made instructions for the task force that was formed, a task force that went around the country collecting information about mental health from every county, and also coming up with a final report that was submitted to the Ministry of Health and also eventually to the President. That in itself is a message of positivity. That we are also seeing that as counties, the counties especially that we have been working in, I'm not so sure about other counties, but the counties we've been working in, that is Kisumu, Vihiga, Bungoma, and Kakamega counties, we have seen increased financing towards mental health, that they're actually starting to set budgets towards mental health. They're starting even to put out calls for more staff in terms of mental health, recruiting more personnel towards mental health. This in itself is a message of positivity and a picture of positivity that people are giving mental health attention that it so deserves. So all hope is not lost, and that people even in the community are starting to talk about this. Even in social media, you will see that conversations around mental health are all over. Then that is a sign of positivity, that things are actually looking up.
And taking this further as we close, I mean, just how important is it for some of the survivors, some of the people who are case studies coming out to speak about this? You know, we've seen, you know, influential people in society speaking of the same, and we see how many people come out to equally say that, yes, I acknowledge that I have a problem. Initially, I wanted to close myself, you know, in the cupboard and not speak about it. Just how instrumental is it for some of us to share some of these stories that are out here?
Yes, it is very important to speak about mental health, and as people who have been able to go through it and come out successfully, then it's important that we spread the message of hope to the country and to our communities at large, that mental health is not something that is to be shunned or to be spoken about in secret, but it's something that we need to come out in the open and speak about it, and that there is help for people who are actually undergoing tough mental health challenges or conditions, that people can be able to undergo treatment and come out successfully and even regain their self-independence and also regain their normal mental health state. And these are actually, I want to say that I'm very happy that even in the global picture, we have seen people who are coming out to speak about their mental health. We saw that Prince Harry of Great Britain was even championing for mental health globally, even through sports. And that is something that is a very good sign that people are actually speaking about it, and people who have undergone it are spreading that message of hope that all is not lost and that we can get help for this, for mental health.
Asante sana, Mike Wanjigu. We keep talking about this. We keep pushing, because then it is incumbent upon us. Like we always say, nobody is immune to this. It could be somebody else. Tomorrow it is you. How you walk through with this person is very, very instrumental. It could be helpful to you. And so on that very note, we say, we'll keep pushing for this. We'll keep talking about it. But then we close it for now, as we look forward to another candid discussion on other issues on mental health some other time. Thank you so much for keeping us company. Thank you so much once again, Mike, for the great insights and for your time. And special thanks also to T. Nada. We close it at that time.